I always just try to start with that, we do broadcast every session for our members to view. That doesn't include our caucus or any sidebar that might need to happen. And other than that, I don't really have any other housekeeping items. I know you guys got a sign-in sheet and agenda, always with flexibility. Yep, you guys got it, no worries. All right, so today, we intend to propose, language for Articles 2, 3, 6, 8, and 12, and a new appendix, which will show you what that is. And we do know we're holding Articles 10, 18, and 20 in the appendix just for, that's really dealing with compensation supplements, salary schedules. So we don't have any proposals right at this point because we're kind of with you waiting to see what happens in special session. So yeah, if you're ready, we'll do our materials path.
We are ready.
Okay, we made a copy for you, Kelly, that's single-sided. We do those just for TAs in case, and then the rest are, we stack them here crisscross for you to pass out to your team. Put those across before I dig right in. One of those are passing out. I know that the board gave us several proposals. Some of those we do try to address in our proposal today. Not all of them, because we still are trying to kind of work through everything, as I'm sure you are with our very robust day. So we're going to give you some more homework. So we'll just, if everybody's their copies, if you need any extra, let us know. The lovely Sherry can get you extras if you need those. All right, so we're going to dig right into section 2, which deals with the work year and hours. So in section 2.1, all of these kind of first sections, 2.1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are just updating teachers to instructional personnel, because it's not just teachers. We do have a new language in 2.1.5. This is dealing with, I think this is dealing with professional study day. So no changes to the language that's already there other than teachers to instructional personnel, but we do have a new proposal here that the school board shall utilize centrally located training sites when feasible. When a central location cannot be secured for employees who would have to travel, would have a travel time exceeding 40 minutes from the employee's assigned work location, the board shall provide an East County and West County training option to reduce, not reduce, travel burden on instructional personnel. Again, open to a counter there, north or south, either east or west, which I think the district does do a pretty good job with some of those larger departments, but that's our proposal there. 2.1.6, this language talks about specialized training or in service for professional day. The original language is said social workers and all student services. I think social workers are part of student services. But so we're striking social workers, not because we don't want them to have that, but because we believe they are included in student service personnel, but we are proposing that we add instructional personnel working at ESE centers, access point staff, and all student service personnel shall be provided specialized in service training on any designated professional study day. This is brought by the bargaining team. I do know the ESE centers were working to kind of do that for their group. So this is our proposal there, that they can have some in-service specialized for their groups.
So again, just for clarity, so on the access point staff, that's not access point staff at ESE centers, but an access point staff that's at a traditional site as well.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if we need to clarify that in the language, we can. The note here. Okay, 2.18, teachers to instructional personnel there. 2.19, we're striking district to have that correctly reflect that it's the board. And this is the language about early release days. So the board shall establish early release days and adding for the purpose of providing additional planning time for instructional personnel. I believe, this is what early release was intended for. Early release days shall be designated as instructional work and planning time, not just teacher. All of our employees benefit from that. The scheduling of early release days may be changed upon consultation agreement between the school board, Hillsborough County, or their designee and the Hillsborough Classroom Teachers Association. Just to be clear there, not trying to change. I think that's already who really is doing that decision, making that decision. Then we move to page 8. On the next page, just an update there from teacher to instructional staff in that last sentence. In the next paragraph, no more than 1 hour per month may be used for PLCs or other data gathering planning intended to increase student achievement on an early release day. So that last little part added there. And then we wanted to add some language to clarify that such time shall be scheduled immediately following or as close as practicable to student dismissal on designated early release day to preserve uninterrupted teacher work time. I did note here, we do know that the board has a proposed change there, and we're looking at that and the impacts in the rest of the language. So we are aware of it. We just didn't have it here in our prepared materials. The next sentence there, a different activity may be scheduled during that time if a faculty, through a secret ballot vote with 2/3 approval, that would be a SIP waiver, agrees to do so. And rather than saying these activities should, we wanted to say these activities shall be intended to increase student achievement. And then adding a sentence here at the end, once a month during PLC time, the board will provide a virtual PLC option for all ESE Center and access point staff to collaborate. Trying to give them something.
So would that be in addition to the site utilizing a Monday for that?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, just for clarity,
I'll find out. I'll talk to I think that was our centers team, ESE folks that wanted to look at that. So unless someone's here to.
I thought that would be in lieu of the site-based meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right, so then those teachers or those instructional staff would potentially not participate on any Monday throughout the school year with the site-based PLC planning, if they were utilizing a ESC Center access point staff for collaboration.
Open to a counter there.
Yeah,
I think our
okay.
intent, what we're trying to go for here is that there's something specialized for those folks.
Right.
It's not, I'm having to participate maybe in something that doesn't quite, but it allows us an ability to collaborate with folks that are working in this. So again, hopefully you understand the intent, and we weren't trying to take people from other important things, but that is what they're looking for, is more specialized and focused collaboration for those folks. So whether it's once a month or, again, open to a counter.
Okay.
Yeah, a good question.
All right.
And then lastly, we have a new proposal here, 2.1.10. Instructional personnel will have the option to work remotely on any non-student teacher workday. We've looked at this in other counties, including St. Johns County, which is one of the top achieving districts in the state. They have this language and option. We believe that it's a no-cost working condition matter, and for some staff, this would cut down on travel on that day and allow them to be more productive. So this would truly be on a non-student work day, but there would be an option to work virtually or remotely.
Okay. And I'm thinking about like pre-planning week right now, when we have in language that's thinking about comp time. And so if there's a planned activity on a non-student teacher work day, then that would not be applicable, or maybe that would be the counter. And
yep, open to counter. We're just trying to be creative here, and we can try to find out other counties that do it, but I do know, again, St. John's being an outstanding county. I don't know if they're quite #1 anymore. I think Nassau beat them, but they are a high achieving district and have this there. So again, open to counters and looking at any of those things that maybe weren't addressed here in this proposal. All right. Then we get into 2.2, vacations for 12 months. We're trying to update teachers to instructional personnel, so probably should have even updated the teachers there, 12-month teachers. So again, 2.2.1, changes to teacher to instructional personnel. We do have a proposal here in that, I think it's the last sentence, vacation leave is cumulative, not to exceed 80 days. Accrued vacation will be paid out at the time of, we're proposing striking termination to separation of employment, not, again, changing the intent here, but we could still keep termination, but it sounds like that's a we fired you.
Right.
And, you know, that's what we're really going for there is whether it's termination of employment by the employee or, but that separation from employment seems, hopefully you see, we're not trying to change any intent here, just to clarify. 2.2.2, this has to do with, granting employee vacations, you know, those are granted, through the administrator. And if it's denied, the employee shall be provided with written explanation. So we're proposing that that explanation for the reason for a denial as soon as possible will be written. Okay, holidays, 2.3. We have just a clarifying question in 2.3.1. This is the school holidays and the school year shall be determined by the board when it adopts the annual school calendar and shall be named in the calendar, all good. This sentence here says if emergency holidays are granted, that the time missed must be made up by reduction of time designed as vacation in quotes on the annual calendar. So our questions here are just, what is an emergency holiday? What does that mean? And how would this impact vacation in quotes? So I think it was just, what does that mean? And do we need to look at this to maybe better explain that? Because when I read that, I was like, what's an emergency holiday? And
We might need to have a lot more of those.
yeah. So again, if you don't know, we can come back to it, but
We'll come back to that.
I think there's maybe a better way to say what we're trying to do there. We weren't sure if this is like we know that a couple years ago, right? We had a lot of days where the district was closed because of emergency, but I don't know that people would call that holiday. And then designated as vacation. Yeah, and designated as vacation on the annual calendar. I don't even know if
Look
anything
back
is,
and
yeah,
see.
I don't know what that means. So
Thing I could,
you don't have to answer now,
Right,
but
I don't know. And
Yeah.
we didn't have that during our time.
yeah, no,
But I
it's,
would think that maybe if it was a hurricane day on what was a vacation
Vacation
day,
day.
and then you end up having to
Hmm.
make up that day later.
okay,
Totally just a.
Could be. yeah.
Would make sense.
We'll try to look back too in some old contracts, but there may be a better way to say what you just said.
If that's the case, we don't want more of those.
Yeah, that could be like, what do we do when there was a paid holiday on an emergency closure? But anyway, I don't know. Okay, so that's all that. Just opening a can of worms there. All right, 2.3.2, the board shall grant all instructional personnel rather than teachers, and we're proposing striking working less than 12 months, the 6 paid holidays each school year. Do 12-month employees not get these, I think is the question. I think on those calendars, they are getting those paid holidays, but
Yeah, we would have to look to see if holidays are all the same though for
Okay.
each calendar, so.
yeah,
okay.
I know in the past, we've tried to kind of outline what those holidays are, and I know sometimes that creates some issues depending on who's who, but
And-
I mean, I think everyone should get those, but
Right, and
that's just where they are might be different.
Some of your 12-month folks and your not less than 12-month folks have different work calendars. and So
Right.
those may be distributed differently depending on
Right.
their start and end dates, so we have to take a look at that.
Because I think some of our folks
Yeah.
are looking at this one, they're like, yeah, they have paid holidays. So
Okay.
that's the goal there, to make sure everybody's getting 6 paid holidays. Maybe we don't define what those are because they do vary. 2.3.3, again, all the changes here are just from teacher to instructional personnel. 2.4, 2.4.1, another change there from teacher to instructional personnel. This language is about just the workday for instructional personnel shall be 8 hours. The normal workday shall be followed during pre-planning, post-planning, and teacher workdays. And then we wanted to be clear here on district-wide scheduled conference days. It said days/nights. We're proposing striking nights and clarifying that district-wide scheduled conference day set by the calendar committee, the length of the day for 8-hour instructional personnel shall be 6 hours, including 1 hour for lunch. So we just want to clarify here that conference days on that calendar is a specific day set kind of as a makeup day, if you will, or if a staff that can't work the conference day or night that's scheduled at their school, whether it's an afternoon or night, is that would be their day. And staff do not work 6-hour days on conference, like at their actual site. You know, they work their day and then they stay for the conference, and sometimes those are a couple times a year. So that's all we're doing there, is just to be really clear that this is the conference day on the calendar that is set different than when a site is setting their conference day or night. We're not trying to dictate when that time needs to be, but so it's just some clarifying language there.
So just clarify, so
Mhm.
the point though is to try to clarify and make the connection between the two conference days, one in each semester.
Correct.
And trying to identify what about that language.
Well,
Because right now,
yes.
the student calendar committee creates the student calendar,
Mhm.
and then the employee work calendar is created after that,
Okay,
designating when those two conference days would occur.
okay. So maybe it needs, again, we can
I'll work
counter to
on
make
it.
sure
Okay.
that it's the district-wide employee schedule set, we
I
can
gotcha.
clarify how that is, but what we are trying to just delineate is that conference day is set on that calendar as a fixed
On the
day,
employee
but
work
it's
calendar.
different than a site saying, this is our conference night that we're
Gotcha.
scheduling.
Okay.
And just to be clear that that's it's a 6-hour makeup.
Makeup
which
day.
I think is addressed. I think we have language to address that later, but. Okay, so thanks for those clarifying questions. 2.4.2, teachers to instructional personnel. All right, 2.4.3. Well, there's a lot going on here. So what we're striking here is to just clarify that the current language already says that secondary and elementary schools the teaching time is a maximum of 300 minutes. So that's kind of what's going on here. So teaching time in striking secondary schools shall be a maximum of 300 minutes per day, period. And then we're striking that language there about what it talks about secondary, but we're trying to add clarity in the next section here, part of this 2.4.3. A secondary instructional personnel schedule, including those in K-8 setting, shall consist of no more than 2 subject areas and 3 or fewer preparations except in unique circumstances. So it's kind of saying the same thing that we struck there, but we are trying to be inclusive of the K-8 setting because sometimes they get left out. And with the growing of our K-8 centers, such exceptions, that's where we're talking about unique circumstances, such exceptions must be accepted by the affected teacher in writing. So there's language there that says that right now, if there's an exception, it must be approved by the appropriate assistant superintendent after the association has been advised of the unusual circumstance. And our note here is that the approval and advisement to HCTA is in the contract. We don't believe is actually happening. I don't think area superintendents are saying, hey, this many teachers, and then we're approving it, and then it's going that way. We believe it would make more sense for that affected teacher to be able to accept or deny that additional workload in collaboration with the site administrator. So again, we're not saying there can't be exceptions, but just trying to kind of clean that up. I mean, I don't know, Rob and I don't think we've ever been sent this, exceptions sent to us and approved and all that.
So just thinking like the time of the year that we're in now when teachers are receiving their assignments. So if there was an assignment that had additional preps, let's just say, that's where that conversation would be happening. And then if somebody wasn't in agreement to it, would have to be talking about whether their options might exist.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this language of it has to be approved by the assistant superintendent after we've been advised. I don't think that's happening. So we're just trying to give that to that employee and those administrators to have that discussion. And then, accept it in writing, and that way it's everybody's not I didn't know situation. The striking of 2.4.4, teaching time in elementary school shall be a maximum of 300 minutes per day. Again, the reason that's done is just addressed what we've done in the top there. Teaching time in school shall be a maximum of 300 minutes, because we were already saying secondary is 300 minutes, elementary is 300 minutes. We just wanted to be clear that that's everybody. 2.4.5, okay. This has to do with reporting for work. So we're striking the word accounting to reporting. A reporting procedure related to instructional personnel reporting for work shall be implemented at each site in accordance with sign-in procedures in section 2.16 of this agreement. We've got some new language there that we'll get to. So the reason we changed accounting to reporting is that we felt like the language already is talking about how it's not a payroll mechanism, so it's not an accounting piece. It really is for reporting and gathering that information. And then the language about, I mean, it already talks about the steering committee that, this sign-in procedure is developed and implemented with the steering committee. So we're striking here, and the additional language is to kind of clarify that a little further. So our new language here is that the faculty steering committee, in collaboration with the building administrator, shall select either a district-approved electronic sign-in system or the official school board-approved paper sign-in form for daily reporting procedures. Consistent with this section, reporting procedures shall not be utilized to initiate or determine payroll deductions independent of employee entry or written authorization as provided here. So we're going to get into this in a sign-in procedure section that we're proposing, and a new idea. What we're looking for is that, we run into, once a month, we've got something that comes up where it's like, my school's doing it this way and this school's doing it this way. So we're not trying to take away the autonomy of the site to determine, do we want to do paper, do we want to do electronic, but trying to kind of get to a place where it's uniform to an extent. So, and again, this is something we're open to counters and how to collaborate and come up with that. That's the goal. Yeah, and again, all that language, there was already language there about the procedure is not used for payroll calculations. So we're trying to keep with all that, but just be clear. All right, a new 2.4.7. So a lot of this is coming from this, we have a technical college committee, and the rationale behind this language is that the traditional 300-minute daily instruction designed for K through 12 doesn't always align with what's going on in a technical college. They operate on block scheduling. Sometimes they have extended instructional periods and rolling enrollment models. So the goal here is to kind of capture that, moving to that weekly instructional framework, which is the 1,500 minutes per week, to really reflect how those are already structured. So there's some more notes there, but this new language is saying that technical college instructors shall not be subject to the daily 300-minute instructional limit. Instructional time for technical college instructors may instead be calculated on a weekly basis, with total instructional minutes assigned in alignment with program requirements, including but not limited to maximum 1,500 minutes per week, or as otherwise determined by program design. So trying to give them a little more flexibility that this is not a 300 minutes a day, because I think part of it, and John, we talked about, is like that 4 days in the summer.
Yeah,
So
at the end of May, we go on a 4-day student week, it's 375 minutes a day.
Yeah.
For instructional time to meet that we're hourly, and to maintain financial aid, we have a minimum number of hours. We have to do 25 hours a week, no matter the number of days. So right now, we'll be, well, in a month, we'll be doing 375 minutes a day instead of 300. Maintain that.
yeah, so that's where we're going. This isn't to like step on instructional time. It's just to kind of create language that acknowledges that's what's going on. So going on, such assignments shall include adequate time for planning, preparation, and non-instructional duties, and shall not result in excessive workloads or continuous instruction assignment without relief. So that's all there. And if there's more questions, John's our resident expert.
All right.
All right, moving on to section 2.5. Teaching an additional period for compensation. All those first few proposals there are just teachers to instructional personnel. And we do have a few new items here. We know this is a big topic that has come to us through our surveys and through all of our contract action teams and committees about class size. So the new 2.5.7, when a secondary teacher has a total number of rostered students exceeding 180 students, the teacher will receive pay for additional hour of work daily. With larger class sizes, teachers have to be compensated for that additional workload. That's grading, IEP meetings, those all increase with more students. I think the 180 is kind of based on a rationale of up to 30 students for 6 preps. And if you talk to the teachers, they talk about the challenges of once a class gets above 30, all that workload does increase. So that's the rationale we were going with that number. A new 2.5.8, when pre-K through 3rd grade teachers individual class section exceeds 18 students, or when a 4th through 5th grade teacher's individual class section exceeds 22 students, the teacher shall receive pay for an additional hour of work. So these are coming straight from the statute. And we put a note here, trying to kind of come up with this language in the elementary setting, that the intent is for this to be for those active classes, not like the homeroom or teacher directed PE, where those are kind of more combined. So this is really that active teaching where they've got their class there. And then a new 2.5.9, when an ESE or student services instructional personnel are assigned responsibilities that exceed one full unit allocation, the employee shall receive T-pay for each additional portion of a unit covered. So those are our proposals there. All right, 2.6, length of day for district resource teachers. What we want to do, just clarify that rather than school, but district and site-based resource teachers, not all of them are necessarily at school, but site teachers shall have an 8-hour workday, including lunch. So just some clarifying there.
Okay.
2.71, teachers to instructional personnel. I referenced 1.21, which talks about who all is included in the unit. This is about planning and lunch periods. So instructional personnel shall have interrupted daily planning time during which they will not be responsible for students attendant at faculty meetings or be assigned to other duties except for emergencies. And here we go again. We've tried this in the past. We're trying to help define what emergency means. So new language. Emergencies defined as unforeseen and unavoidable circumstances requiring immediate attention to ensure student and staff safety or maintain school operations. We recently had one, which was there was a fire in a cafeteria, and hey, this is that nobody planned that. Nobody knew that was unforeseeable, but the school needed to do some things to maintain safety and smooth school operations. New language here too, any loss of planning time shall be restored within the same work week. And if restoration is not possible, the employee shall be compensated at their hourly rate of pay new sentence, in accordance with section 3.4, the school office shall maintain a duty roster available for staff examination to ascertain the equity of regular or emergency assignments, which 3.4 talks about the duty roster. And then 2.72, teacher to instructional. That's for instructional planning. And then 2.73, striking secondary, but just being clear that teachers in schools, which could be a K-8, with 7 or more student instructional periods shall have a scheduled planning period of no fewer than, rather than at least, but no fewer than 1 full period per day within the student day. So trying to just offer some clarity there. 2.74, planning for instructional personnel. So changing that from teachers. 2.75, we're proposing, this is about elementary teachers K through 5, and we wanted to add including those at K-8 schools. We've got K through 5 at our K-8. Shall be provided with a weekly minimum of 2.5 hours of planning time within the student day, equivalent to 30 consecutive uninterrupted minutes per day. So no changes to all that time, just trying to be clear that K-8 is included. Elementary teachers' planning time shall additionally take place before or after the student day and during the day when students are with special teachers, or in the case of kindergarten teachers, when an aide is present. And then adding a sentence here at the end, elementary specials shall be scheduled in blocks of no fewer than 30 consecutive minutes in order to ensure teacher planning. We believe this is all happening. This is not an intent to like up anything, just to be really clear, because the language, I think it's there and we have our practice and we know what it means, but we just want it to be, this is what we're doing. In 2.76, this talks a little bit more about planning. No change to the language that's already there, but proposing in addition, elementary instructional personnel at K-8 schools shall receive no fewer than 45 minutes of uninterrupted planning time per day. So I think in talking with our K-8 people, that's what's happening. 2.77, striking whenever possible, but just being clear, elementary teachers shall not be required to teach more than 3 hours without a break. 2.78, changing teachers to instructional personnel. 2.79, teachers to instructional personnel. 2.710, in addition, this is already talking about specified planning and lunch for department heads, and we're proposing adding and subject area leaders. The job is the same, but at the middle school level, they don't get the extra planning time. So this would allow for additional time to complete the subject area leader duties, but also provide time for those additional meetings. All right, we have a new 2.712, and this is kind of dealing with planning time and a concept proposal here. Again, open to discussion and counter on it. So new language, the priority for the school board shall be to protect and provide instructional planning time in accordance with this section. Therefore, the school board and the association agreed to establish a joint instructional planning time committee. The committee will consist of 5 members chosen by the district, 5 members chosen by the association president to represent elementary, middle, K-8, and high school, and 1 chairperson mutually agreed to by the superintendent and the association president. The purpose of this committee is to monitor the encroachment of duties and other requirements, including those imposed by the legislature on instructional planning time, and to recommend solutions to ensure the protection and effective scheduling of planning time. To determine tasks of the teacher planning committee, a summary report of planning time afforded to instructional personnel by school will be provided to the superintendent or their designee and the HCTA president no later than September 30th of each school year to be reviewed by the committee annually. So what we're trying to do here is, this contract doesn't set like, this is how many minutes. And we just hear a lot of reports, some schools this, some have that. So the goal of this committee is to just continue to look at that and, can meet as needed and kind of look at what's going on with planning time. The goal of having 5 members, even though we listed elementary, middle, K-8, high, that other person could be student services or, but we're trying to represent all folks without this committee being too large. So it's a concept there, and we hope that there's appetite to kind of entertain how to look at that and just make sure that all of us are committed to protecting that planning time.
We know the discussion on this topic comes up a lot.
Yes. And, I think it would, a lot of our committee work, at least since I've been here, has been really positive. It gets folks that are in the sites, not just employees, but administrators too, to have open discussion and actually come up with solutions outside of this, where it's like, what are we bargaining for? Not a bargaining, it's totally making recommendations in those committees to then bring here. So that's why we felt, hey, let's try it out with planning time and see what we can do. All right, the next page, page 12, 2.81, teachers to instructional personnel. So all instructional personnel shall be notified of their tentative program schedule, grade level assignment, including room assignments, and whether they will be in a co-teach or support facilitation setting. So adding support facilitation and planning period for the ensuing year, no fewer than 1 workday prior to the start of the initial spring transfer period. And then instructional personnel from teachers on leave should contact their work site for tentative schedule. So our rationale here is that, knowing that support facilitation role in advance helps those folks. I mean, changing that does kind of inform you on what your conditions will be like. This could change the layout of the classroom, the flow of lesson planning, et cetera. So just giving a heads up for those folks. And then we move into the next paragraph. In addition, they will be notified of any change in their tentative program, schedule, or grade level assignment for the ensuing year, including the schools to which they will be assigned, no fewer than 3 workdays prior to the change. So we wanted to be specific as soon as possible. Can we at least get no fewer than 3 workdays prior to the change? Could be more. And then the next part is just updating teacher to instructional personnel. And this is about being transferred from a non-classroom position, that they would get written consent from that employee. So they're already getting consent, but in writing. The next section, principal has discretion regarding teaching assignments. And we just we're striking is the expectation of the parties. We just want to be clear and just clarify this, that however, the principal will provide a written explanation of their rationale for any assignment changes to the affected employee. So it just seemed kind of the expectation of the parties that will happen, but let's just be clear that that explanation is being given to the employee. New language, which we think is already happening most of the time, but we want it to be consistent. Whenever the regular assignment and or previously assigned classroom of instructional personnel is to be changed after the first student day of the school year, the employee shall be provided duty-free planning time to prepare for the change. A minimum of 1 day shall be provided for a change in subject area or grade level, and a minimum of 1 day shall be provided for a change in classroom or work location. If both scenarios apply, the employee shall receive a minimum of 2 duty-free planning days. Even talking among this group, folks are saying, yeah, I get that, I might get more, some are, so we just wanted to be consistent that you're getting time to adjust to those changes.
But would the supervision or coverage for those kids then fall on the other teachers would be my concern.
Who was it? There was, I think somebody in our team talked about this, and maybe they can talk to how it happened at their site. I forget who it was.
I mean, I talked about it, but I was in high school, so.
Well, I've done it in elementary school, and as the person who was shamed, those kids were coming from somewhere to begin with, so they just stayed there until I got my room set up to take the new.
It was the same in high school. They were changing me from, I think it was English 1, they needed to teach English 3. So they were already in English 3 classes, and they just held moving them into my class so that I could have time. So they were still being supervised by another teacher. Their class was just too large, or they were just dispersing that class to a different
So
section.
maybe those were new additional units or something, because I was just thinking if you already had 6 classes and Val
Yeah.
had 6 classes and now I'm changing something, you still have kids that have to be
Well, what they
supervised.
did was they took
Yeah.
the English 1 classes
Mhm.
that I had, and they were put into other teachers' English 1 classes.
I see.
And so I had that planning time so that I could prepare for the English 3.
My first grade students went into the first grade class, and they didn't give me my second grade until I set up.
I see.
Yeah. Okay. So,
I just
Yeah,
worry about
I-
the double up of the kids into one person's and relieving somebody else of assignment, then you get into that, well, now I'm absorbing and then.
Yeah, I think the problem I'm trying to solve, I think is pretty clear, right? Someone that is kind of being moved around in terms of either physically or with the group of kids that they have to work with. I think we have language that we're gonna propose that maybe offers a way to get that covered.
Okay.
So let's, we get to that.
and again, all of these open to
Mhm.
counter and to address those
Yeah.
things. I mean, we're trying to get, all of these proposals have a reason behind them. At
Absolutely.
some point, they've been motivated by a lot of input and that data gathering on our end. All right, 2.82, changing teacher to instructional personnel in 2 spots there. This has to do with scheduling, making sure this is non-discriminatory when they're setting schedules. And then the last sentence there, qualifications and experience level of instructional personnel will be given consideration in terms of school schedule, program, or grade level assignment. And no more than, our proposal here is to strike 4 and make it 2 consecutive hours of classes shall be assigned to special teachers. 2.83. This is about notice, about changes to school class or bell schedules. So I'll just kind of get to where our changes here. This is that the employees will given at least 3 days work notice for that change. Change in the school's class or bell schedule shall accommodate teachers' right to have duty-free lunch and guarantee planning time for the whole day. New language, if the alternative bell schedule shortens the class period, teachers will receive comp time equivalent to each minute lost for their planning period. Any exceptions shall be submitted to the appropriate regional superintendent to include the chief of student services and federal programs if impacting student services personnel for approval, who shall then notify the association. So this came from our high school committee. The contract already provides for teachers in schools with 7 student instructional periods to have scheduled planning period of at least 1 full period per day. But when an alternative bell schedule is created for pep rallies, club days, teachers don't always get their full period of planning, although the same work exists, but with less planning time. And adding that chief of student services came from our student services group. So we're proposing including them into that when those changes happen. Floating teachers, just some cleanup language here. This is about when it's necessary to use floating teachers and the guidelines. What we're looking for in sections, letter C there, is floating teachers shall have their class schedule on the same floor and geographic area, not, to the extent possible. That's kind of vague and unclear. And then D, striking whenever possible and just saying no teacher shall be required to float in consecutive school years. All right, 2.91. This came from our student services committee. This has to do with student services personnel we're proposing striking our RTI and updating it to MTSS. That's just updating what we're doing. So this is school counselors, psychologists, speech and language pathologists. I think there's a comma that needs to be actually after speech. MTSS facilitators and social workers shall not, rather than saying shall normally be assigned, but shall not be assigned to, take the no off, not be assigned to more than 3 school sites. But we're adding some clarifying language here, with the exception of members of the specialty teams, which would include assessment team, bilingual team, pre-K team, and charter team. And any exceptions shall be submitted to the Chief of Student Services and federal programs for approval, who shall then notify the association. So just trying to clean up here that, you know, our feedback was RTI is actually MTSS facilitators, and then just being really clear that they're not assigned to more than 3 school sites, with the exception of those teams. All right, 2.93, new language here. The language already says that our student services personnel shall be offered extended year and day contracts and supplemented service contracts appropriate to the district needs prior to the district contracting out. So we wanted to add some clarity here that the critical shortage student services personnel shall also be offered 11-month contracts at their hourly rate in order to meet agency and state regulations and timelines prior to the district hiring out contracted services. 11-month contracts will be consistent with average contracts of non-critical shortage areas. And then HCTA shall be notified of the intent to offer extended year contracts and or seek outside contracting agencies to fill vacant positions. So I think we've had a lot of discussions about this, trying to offer, let's get a little, can we offer those 11-month contracts and have those be 11-month, even maybe there's 11-month positions that allow for these student services to help address those needs in the summer. So that came directly from our student services group. 2.94. This also came from our school psychologist because there's some concern that their department is not being treated the same as all student services. So you'll see what we're going here for. In the case of student services vacancies is already there, which we believe includes school psychologists, but we want to be really clear that student services vacancies including school psychologists that must be covered by existing staff. Staff providing coverage shall be entitled to extra pay at their current hourly rate of T-pay. This is already there, but we've been struggling with these folks getting that. And so our proposal here is this provision shall be uniformly applied regardless of student services role. And then new language that priority for these T-pay opportunities shall be provided to student services employees prior to hiring contracted providers. For the additional time a student service employee must use to provide services, T-pay shall be provided. I know our school psychologists can speak to this, but this has been something that they brought to us consistently and we even talked to some of our school social workers, like, what's the problem? We're doing it. And so we just want to be really clear that this is what we're doing. And if you have any questions, happy to talk through that. So there's some notes there too, that they're concerned that they're not being treated the same for the T-pay opportunities at other departments, and that the district is not allowing employees these extra opportunities and rather hiring outside contracted services. When some of our folks would say, hey, I'll do that for extra pay. All right, 2.10. This is schedules for multi-school teachers and certified support personnel. So in arranging schedules for personnel who are assigned to more than one school, striking an effort shall be made to limit. It should just be the amount of inter-school travel shall be limited, and when required, shall be reimbursed at the current mileage rate, which we address mileage rates later. So just trying to be very clear there that those folks, their time is being limited, or that school travel is limited. In 2.10.2, changing teachers to instructional personnel with multi-school assignments shall be assigned extra duties as would be appropriate to any other faculty member on a prorated basis, and adding clarification based on their full-time equivalency across all work sites. So, and then the next section, new language, the total work time obligation of an employee with multi-school assignments shall not exceed that of a single site teacher, and shall not require participation in school-wide events or activities at work sites other than those scheduled at their home hiring site. So this came from our elementary specials committee, that they're not duplicating the work at multiple events unless it is voluntary. You know, they should be treated, whether they're at 2 sites or 1 site, that workload should be equivalent. So that's our intent there. open to how to be very clear with that. All right, we have a new 2.105 from our technical college folks. So new language, schedules for technical college instructors responsible for instructing, site supervising and or assessing multiple site programs and or students shall be designed to account for travel time between locations, instructional continuity for adult learners, and adequate planning and preparation time. No instructor shall be assigned to multiple locations in a manner that results in a loss of planning time, excessive travel burden, or unreasonable instructional duties. And travel time between assigned supervisory locations shall be considered part of the workday. So these instructors often supervise or teach across multiple sites, like clinicals, labs, industry locations. So without these clear protections, this can lead to lost planning time or excessive travel burdens and fragmented instruction. So we want to recognize that travel time is part of the workday to protect their planning and ensure continuity for adult learners and good working conditions for staff. So we got our tech college pro here if you have any questions. Okay. That came directly from that committee. All right, we kind of jumped from page 14 to 16. This 2.126 is new language for the job share section. So this is new language where job share positions shall not be involuntarily reassigned or reduced for the purpose of temporarily addressing staffing shortages at other work sites when such reassignment would create comparable staffing shortages or increased class size at the originating work site. I think this has happened in a few cases and it's hurting our unit employees where, we'll put a job share position there, which then creates a reassignment or a shortage for a full-time person. I can get more information on that to you if you need it, but.
Yeah, because usually the job share would come at the request of the employee, not something that is presented.
Yeah, so
by
we're just trying to protect that it's not involuntarily done. Okay, new section here, 2.13. In the past, we've proposed job share for student services, but they came up with kind of a way to deal with this because the issue with trying to cover student services in a job share situation is sometimes we can't find that other person. So the proposal here is to actually have a half-time position. And so this language, it mirrors job share, but it's talking about half-time. So the conditions of employment for participation in the half-time program for student services shall be as follows. The period of assignment shall be half of the scheduled hours per day for an aggregate of half of the work week. And a deviation from this schedule must be approved in advance by the Division of Human Resources. The student services personnel must be fully certified to provide the services. Human Resources and the appropriate student service department will create half-time position availability based on school vacancies and need of coverage for the school. And student services personnel will be granted long-term leaves with permission of the Division of Human Resources. 12.13.2, the period of service for purposes of this program shall be the regular work year for the position. Payment and benefits for this period of employment shall be computed as follows using a 205-day calendar as an example. Payment shall be equal to 50% of the individual salary based on degree and experience for 205 days and 100% of the individual salary for 11 non-pupil days. B, in addition to the above salary amounts, the student services personnel shall also receive sick leave computed at the rate of 4 hours per month for each month worked, and 6 half days, 24 hours of personal leave, charged the accumulated sick leave per year. Half-time program participants may elect board-provided single employee coverage subject to the board's cap on contributions. If this option is elected, the premium shall be 1/2 of the student services employee's typical single employee medical coverage. Non-optional employee benefits, Social Security, Medicare, retirement, workers' compensation, unemployment compensation, and life insurance shall be based upon reduced salary, negotiated time off benefits, which is sick leave, vacation, paid holiday, will accrue on a prorated 50% basis based upon the reduced salary. And lastly, assignments will constitute for salary purposes more than 1/2 of the school year, thus entitling the participant 1 year of service on a salary schedule and credit of non-probationary purposes. So it's very much mirroring the job share, but what it's really doing is creating the ability to hire people into these positions if there isn't a job share partner because, yeah, the current allocation doesn't always work as it does with instructional staff. And the school psychologists have really been working on this. They want to revise the language. And we're even open to trying an MOU if that's more desirable, but to try to do something here with that. And again, any questions? We've got some pros here to help address it. In the school choice language 2.13, mainly our changes are to instructional personnel, but we do have 2 strikes to try to improve working conditions, to provide employees better school choice options. So instructional personnel shall be permitted to enroll or transfer their children or children for whom they are legally responsible for in a school of their choice and striking space permitting. We want to give priority. The goal here is to give priority to instructional personnel. This will not exempt them from existing eligibility requirements, and then striking if space is limited and just saying instructional personnel's children will be given priority for the school at which they teach. And then instructional personnel, the rest of the language is the same. They enroll their children in the school in which they teach in any program which does not require a special application process. And the instructional personnel's children will be given priority status for all programs in the teacher's choice that do not require a special application process. We've proposed this many years. It's an important issue to a lot of employees that we give that priority. So open to discussion and how we can get there. Dress code 2.14, no changes there, just updating teachers to instructional personnel. And we've got some new language here for media specialists and specials rotation. This comes up a lot, and our media specialist team crafted this language. So a new 2.15.1. Media specialists shall not be designated as special teachers for the purposes of master scheduling. Schools may include media specialists in a rotation schedule. However, such inclusion shall not be on the school-wide special schedule, shall be consistent with the primary responsibilities of media specialists, and shall not routinely limit student and staff access to the media center. Inclusion in a rotation shall be by mutual written agreement for the school year and shall be limited to media integration instruction consistent with the district regulations and library best practices. 2.15.3, media specialists shall not be assigned to provide routine planning coverage, supervision, or general class coverage unrelated to media integration instruction. 2.15.4, if a media specialist is included in a kindergarten or primary rotation pursuant to mutual written agreement, the school shall provide an aide to assist with student supervision and classroom management so that the continued operation of the media center and equitable access to library services are not disrupted. 2.15.5, the media center shall not be used as unscheduled student drop-off coverage. 2.15.6, transfer of primary supervisory responsibility for a class or instructional group to the media specialist shall occur only pursuant to an instructional period scheduled between the media specialist and an individual instructional personnel agreed to in advance under this section. For purposes of this section, primary supervisory responsibility includes situations in which a class or a substantial portion of a class is sent to the media center without the classroom teacher remaining present. And lastly, nothing in this section would shall limit a media specialist's ability to provide instruction by mutual agreement when such instruction supports student learning and equitable access to library services. This came from our media specialist committee. I think it's pretty clear there. If you have any questions, let us know. We've got good folks here to talk about rationale and answer any questions.
Okay.
All right, a new 2.16. When we covered 2.4, we talked about sign-in procedures. So here we are trying to propose some language to kind of clarify that. So 2.16 would be new language for sign-in procedures and late arrival, early departure documentation. 2.16.1, for the purposes of this section, an instructional personnel's report time and workday shall be as established for the individual work site pursuant to section 2.4. 2.16.2, each work site shall utilize a standardized sign-in procedure, and such procedure may be conducted through a board-approved electronic system or a school board-approved paper sign-in form. 2.16.3, Where an electronic sign-in system is utilized, the board shall ensure sufficient functional access points and equipment to reasonably accommodate employee reporting at their established report time. 2.16.4, an instructional personnel who is present and available for duty at their established report time shall not be penalized due to delays caused by equipment malfunction, system processing time, network delay, or limited access points. 2.16.7, sign-in procedures shall not be utilized to initiate automatic payroll deductions. And 2.16.8, if an instructional personnel late arrival or early departure may result in leave usage pursuant to the section, documentation shall be completed through a board-approved electronic system or a board-approved form. The method of such documentation shall be selected by the faculty steering committee in collaboration with the building administrator. And then clarifying that leave deductions shall occur only upon the employee's entry of the leaves district in the district's payroll system or written authorization for such entry. So again, just trying to get some consistency across the district that site has the ability to choose, but we're trying to get that consistent because we're hearing reports that it's, I've been at these different schools and we did it this way here and this way here and this way here. All right, employee rights and responsibilities.
You want to take a breath? You've been doing a great job.
I know.
Exemplary, I might say, but you're reading for about an hour and you're doing a great job. I just want to say.
I'm good to keep going.
All right, yeah, okay.
I hope everything's like
No,
not falling
and
asleep.
again, we know we're proposing a lot, right? So again, it filters from our members, not only the ones that are here, but from our teams across the district. And we're just trying to whittle down to a better way of work. And it will take a little bit of, of our teams kind of working through this and seeing what we have here. But we kind of want to throw it all at you today, or at least have it so that way you can discuss it on your side.
Yeah.
So trying to get rid of a little
No,
filibuster here so you can catch your breath.
You need another.
I'm good. And the thing is, section 2 and 3 are really employee heavy sections. So this makes sense why employees would have a lot to say about this. So, and hopefully you do see that, I know last time we gave you our platform, which is based on responses, and hopefully you're seeing how this all connects now. So I'm good to keep going unless you all need a break from my monotone.
Keep it rocking.
Okay, let's see if we can get through section 3. All right, section 3.1 is accountability, specifically dealing with SIP waivers. All right, so 3.11, the school improvement plan waiver shall be considered part and parcel to the collective bargaining agreement. No change there, but we want to add new language, and the SIP waiver guidelines shall be incorporated into this agreement in Appendix F. So when we get there, there's an Appendix F.
Okay.
That's why this is so thick. Don't worry.
Got it.
And that appendix is actually coming directly from those guidelines that are in a document. There's a few little tweaks we did, but I'll point those out and try to explain why we did that. And we can look at that, give you a chance to look at that and say, this, because I think the version I have is from 2024. I don't know if it's been updated since then, but you can look at that. All right. The language already says that provisions have to be noted, but we wanted to add some clarity here that provisions for wages, hours, terms and conditions of employment of the specific section waived of this agreement shall be clearly documented in a memorandum of understanding for each work site and provided to the association. So we didn't want it to be a note. It should be clearly documented. If we're waiving, the contract is about wages, hours, terms and conditions of employment. So we just want to be clear that those are documented. The MOU, new language here, the MOU shall include explanation of additional duty rosters and assignments for specific unit positions affected. So I think you'll probably see here what we're going for is to just be really clear. A lot of what we've heard from employees is that we see these plans and we've done them year after year, but maybe new people don't actually know what that means. So we just want to get clarity. No changes to 3.12. That is allowing for maximum flexibility, no change there. 3.13, all SAC waiver proposals at a site shall be approved by secret ballot vote and monitored by a CTA representative. No change there, but just clarifying Appendix F that outlines what that is. And then the ballots must include new language details of how the waiver option will be implemented, as well as a no change option, which includes details of how no change will be implemented. And then only bargaining unit members affected by the change may vote to waive the contract. So again, what we're going for here is that details of SIP waiver plans with or without changes, they're not always being included as, plan A does this, and if plan B is no change, this is what it does. And it makes it difficult for employees to really make those informed votes. And the intent of adding affected, those members affected by the change, is we hear sometimes that there's a majority of folks that aren't affected that are voting for it, and then the ones that are affected, they really don't get an equal voice on that. So that's our intent there. No changes to 3.14 or 3.15. That just has to do with ballots and providing the record. But new language here, 3.16, the annual school improvement timeline and information document shall be updated and distributed by the school board to employees no later than March 30th of the preceding school year. So there's a document that comes out, and we're open to this, whatever the best date is. I just picked March 30th because it seemed like that's when it comes out, but there's a timeline that I can't remember the name of the person who sends that to us, but it's kind of the timeline, and that, yeah,
Bridget,
okay, yes,
thank you.
thank you. So I think that's happening, is just, can we,
It is.
when is that date, just to make sure it's going out. So again, we're not trying to create something new, this is something that's already there. And 3.17, if any part of a SIP waiver is unclear and ambiguous or incomplete, this contract shall supersede any interpretation. And lastly, 3.17, SIP waiver shall be subject to the grievance procedure in accordance with section 26. And I think what this is just speaking to is that I think we've done a good job when there's something that comes up, it's like, uh-oh, what does this mean? Maybe a SIP waiver didn't address something that then later we find out. I think we do a good job of working together on that. So the goal here is not to change it. I think this is what is already happening, that the contracts would supersede. And I do think, there's been a few cases where we've actually, let's run it again. To be clear.
Who would determine what's unclear, ambiguous, or incomplete? Because I can just imagine if I have 100 faculty members, staff members voting on a SIP waiver, someone could probably contest that, well, I didn't understand that part, or I didn't.
Yeah.
And they don't have to answer that now,
I think
but
it
I'm
would be
just
the
thinking.
association. I mean, I think, because that does happen. Like, what will happen is we'll get a SIP waiver, they report it to our staff, they bring it to us, and it's like, well, what does it mean? It's like, well, if it's not clear to us as the association, and this agreement is clear, then, but we're open to clarifying that here in the language. But I think ultimately they all come to the association anyway. And again, we already work together to try to deal with those. So if we need to say something there, that if the association and board or whatever, that but that is a problem. That's, I think, why you see what's going on in the language here, is that this is happening where folks are, I don't really know what this means. I didn't know what a no change even meant. So I was confused, so I'm voting for this. And then I remember one specifically at a site was like, it was all this language, but it didn't actually answer some of the questions that were already in the contract, and it was in conflict. And so I think that was one we actually had to run again, but.
I think on the front end, if there was the group that's creating the SIP waiver proposals, there was some mechanism that would help troubleshoot that on the front side, right?
I would say that occasionally, or even rarely, there are unintended consequences that come with some of the SIP waivers. We've always been very good about able to communicate on both sides. I think let's just put a pin in that one and come back at it. I think it really is our ability on either side to come back and see, should we take another vote on this based upon better clarity? So we'll take a look at it as well.
And help us with that, how, I think you see what we're going for, but, because that is happens. It's like, well, what happens then? If truly we don't know, if we even comes to our building and we don't know what it means, then we have to say that the contract, this document is in place, especially when we don't know what it means.
Maybe an appendix F, it'll answer some of those.
Yeah, and again, when you read, I'm not gonna read appendix F, I'll point out things that we did there because the document's already out there, but that could be part of homework, read it and say, hey, actually it might help here to address that.
I would argue we do a better job of this each and every year, and we're just trying to clarify it, and we'll get there. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, 3.2 currently is for lesson plans, and we're proposing adding and exceptional student education planning, because there is 3.24 that talks about exceptional student education personnel assigned to case management, and there's language there. So it wasn't just lesson plans, but also include those folks. So 3.24 no change to that first bit there, that the ESE personnel assigned to case management responsibility and the development of IEPs shall be released from other non-classroom assignments for that purpose. And then we wanted to add, and shall be provided scheduled time during the work week to complete all required documentation and compliance activities. Such time shall be no fewer than 8 hours per week and shall be free from direct student instruction, meetings, and supervisory duties except in emergencies, which we proposed language what emergency means. When this time is not provided, the employee will be compensated at their hourly rate of pay for any hours worked beyond the contractual workday to complete requirements. Our note here, I just want to be really clear that the work to do IEPs is probably one of the most major issues employees bring to HCTA. I think we talk about every month when we have our rep meeting, something comes up about IEPs. We talked today about an IEP prep can take 2 up to 8 hours for one just to complete. And we know there's been changes to how IEPs are completed, also the specialized delivery logs, and that's added a lot of workload to employees. So that's where this is coming from. We're curious that the increase in IEPs among student does the board know, or is this actually an increase of percentage of students with IEPs? Like, has that increased over time? Because it's coming so regularly to us, and you guys do a great job working. We try to report what's going on with systems. But just today they're telling it's like, we used to be able to do this. Now we have to do this. And we're not saying that's any, it was your decision,
Right.
Kelly, but we know that there are mandates that come out that are then unfunded, but that's where this is coming from. So hopefully you see what we're going for here, and we're open, to counters to try to deal with this.
What I hear is trying to find time.
Yes,
for
Right.
time or compensation. I mean, the reality is that folks are taking that work home, and they're doing it on the weekends, and they're doing it beyond their day and not getting compensated for it in any way, because all of the language doesn't actually say that we can do that. And so that's what we're going for. And in the next section here, where it talks about IEP meetings, this is the IEP being scheduled during the normal workday, whenever possible. But we wanted to add that IEP meetings, MTSS, CST, or any district, state, or federally mandated meeting related to exceptional student needs and discipline shall be scheduled during the normal teacher workday. When it is not possible, affected teachers shall be awarded comp time for meeting beyond the workday and during the contractual planning time. So we've got language that does it, but we want to be really clear that this is not just an IEP meeting, that there's all these additional things. And I'll be honest, I don't know what half of these letters stand for, but that's why we were just saying district, state, or federally mandated meetings. That was to try to capture anything you're missing. But again, open to looking at what that really means. But it is about compensation, either time or compensation.
Yeah, I just want to add that, we want to look at the percentage of kids in Hillsborough County that have an IEP or an EP, right? I mean, our gifted teachers are also doing education plans. It seems like in the state and maybe in the entire world, it's more important to document the services that we're delivering than delivering the services, right? And that's really where the rubber hits the road for our employees. They want to do what's best for kids, but it's taking 3 times as much time to document the services that the kid actually needs. What are we doing, right? Who are we serving here? The adults in the state? And I'm not talking to you guys really on this side of the table, but this is the state of education, that we're just documenting everything instead of, hey, did Kelly get what she needs? Did Marie get what she needs? So that's really what we want to dig down into and really have a better conversation, because we can do better here in Hillsborough.
All right, and then a new 3.27. We know this is tied to money, but we decided to put it here. New 3.27, department heads and subject area leaders or any certified volunteer, this could be coaches, classroom teachers, certified volunteer, who provide updated lesson plans and grades for classes with a vacant instructor will receive a $1,000 supplement per vacancy each semester they provide these services. This supplement may be prorated based on the length of service of the employee. So there you go.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is coming from the fact that we've got folks that are doing this, that they're doing the lesson plans and grades for classes that are vacant. And maybe there's a sub there, but someone's got to do it. So their subs are not doing it. So again, open to discussion. And
Yeah,
counter.
yeah. That's all said,
Yeah.
yes.
You get the theme. All right, 3.3 parent conference day night. So here we are on day night. So day, the conference day on the calendar, that was what we were
Yep.
talking about before. And now this is talking about after school and at
Mhm.
night. So that's all there and good. In 3.32, if an instructional personnel, so changing teacher to instructional personnel, cannot comply with the afternoon or evening schedule for parent conferences, the employee, so changing teacher to employee, shall inform the administrator in writing 3 days prior when possible and notify the parents of their students, except in the event of emergency. So just trying to clean that up, that doing it in writing and when it's not possible would be, oh, there's an emergency. The teacher will identify an alternative time for scheduling these conferences within 2 weeks, which may be virtual and shall be in lieu of work time on the student parent conference day as defined in 3.31, which is right above. So we're trying to say that, you know, the instructional personnel, the teacher is identifying that time. They're trying to do it within 2 weeks to give heads up. And we have that virtual option, because I know when I was in my school, sometimes those conferences happened over the phone. And then moving on, in the event an employee who missed their school's conference event and cannot or does not schedule alternative conference opportunities, the employee shall report to work on the day that is designated as the parent conference day on the work schedule, or use up to 6 hours of comp, sick, personal leave. And if the campus is closed for conference day, the teacher cannot be docked sick personal content. So sometime we talked about this with our bargaining team that we understand that, hey, if I don't get that covered, I got to make it up. But sometimes we talk about, the conference day that our school is doing is actually after the day designated on the calendar, and then what? So that's what we're trying to go for here. We think this is already happening, but we're not really trying to change anything per se, but just be really clear about what this means.
Now, and on that conference day, they get
Mhm.
paid for 8 hours, but you're proposing that they would only request for 6 hours of time. And I think that's because if they come in and work, they only have to work 6 hours.
That's correct.
But they would still get paid 2 hours on a day that they didn't make up time for. See what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I understand why you're proposing the 6.
Yeah.
But
Isn't everyone?
which you're getting correct, everyone, but the other
Right.
people work that time, so. That was
6
the
hours.
trade-off, right?
But yeah, I don't think when a school schedules a conference, like when you're scheduling it as okay, I've worked my 8-hour day and then we've got conference day, they're not working 6 hours, right? It could be 2 hours or it's split over a few days.
4 or
So
5, yeah.
yeah, you're not working a
Unless it's
full
split.
8 hours of conference day. So that's where the 6 hours comes from, that, you know, that's what I would have been working for the conference period, or for that not conference period, but conference time. Someone have a better explanation than me?
And it depends if you are doing
Right.
2 conference nights or 4 conference
Right.
nights. And stuff like that. Okay. All right.
So we're not trying to take that flexibility away either from the
Mhm.
site to do that. We're just trying to be really clear, because this is coming from a place of, what is it? So we're trying to clarify. All right. 3.4, so bear with us. This title was duties and class coverage. We're proposing striking and class coverage, not because we're trying to take it away, but what we've done here is try to split it to be what is duties, what is class coverage. I think we probably spent a bulk of our 8-hour day on Monday figuring this out. What is duties and what is class coverage?
Never
'Cause I think-
controversy around that.
Well, I think it gets, we use those terms interchangeably, like duty time. Is that a duty that I'm assigned, or is that my duty as an employee? So that's what we're going for here. All right, so duties, 3.41, a new section or a new provision here. Duties shall be defined as non-teaching, supervisory, or operational responsibility assigned to instructional personnel to ensure student safety, orderly campus operations, and compliance with school or district procedures. These duties shall be for no longer than one 15-minute increment in a workday for one semester. Duties which cannot be accomplished in 15 minutes or less in one semester, such as breakfast in the classroom, could be other things, require a 2/3 approval vote of the faculty by secret ballot election for a school improvement plan SIP waiver. Such SIP waiver shall include compensation provisions for effective bargaining unit members and any appropriate differentiation for elementary, middle school instruction, instructional personnel at a K-8 school, which we talked about earlier. Compensation is flexible, meaning activities. We know that as comp time. And now, if that's accepted, what is currently 3.41, all that would change, but this would be 3.42, but I just left it there for reference. The principal or principal designee may assign these duties, which we just defined, necessary for the safety of students within the workday, so no changes there. These duties shall be reasonable, that's a new word, and shall be distributed equitably. And new language, shall not interfere with contractually protected planning time and shall be posted. The faculty steering committee, which is referenced in section 6.6, will provide input in the development and maintenance of the coverage rotation schedule based on anticipated teacher absences and the availability of teachers who volunteer to provide coverage during their planning period for compensation in accordance with 3.54, which is new. I think it's already in the language, what happens when you lose planning time. And a priority list of teachers that want to volunteer to cover classes more frequently can be created and utilized. So we're trying to kind of create an avenue where some people may, hey, put me on the roster, I can do it more often. You still have a rotation schedule, but there may be people who are willing to do that. No changes to ESE and the self-contained, no changes to our student services there, handle a high volume. But striking this last part there, but we move that up. So this is language here that the supervision of students remain, like we tried to kind of take that and incorporate it into the new 3.41. Okay, 3.42, no change there. 3.43, teachers change to instructional personnel. The language already says that instructional personnel shall not be assigned office duties except as a voluntary duty in a case of emergency. I know we had a discussion about what office duties mean in this case, because some people may actually, maybe part of their work is office duties, but I think what this means, correct me if I'm wrong, is like, maybe I'm a classroom teacher, but I'm now being asked to go and answer the phone or open the door in the office. So that can't be done except in the case of emergency, and we're proposing language here, emergency defined as unforeseen or an unavoidable circumstances requiring immediate attention to ensure student and staff safety or maintain school operations. And emergency provisions shall not be used to circumvent contractual rights. A new 3.44, the term other duties as assigned shall mean occasional non-recurring tasks that are reasonably related to the instructional personnel's job description and within the skills and certification required for that position, Such duties shall be limited in duration and shall not be used to assign ongoing or regularly scheduled responsibilities outside of the employee's contractual role. Duties that become regular, recurring, or ongoing shall not be considered other duties as assigned and shall be subject to review and negotiation with the association prior to inclusion in the appropriate job description. The performance of an other duty as assigned shall not constitute acceptance of an ongoing assignment. Emergency assignments necessary to ensure student safety may be assigned as needed. However, such assignments shall be temporary, shall not become routine practice, and shall not be used to circumvent the limitations of this section. And nothing in this section shall be construed to limit the board's statutory authority to direct the workforce consistent with applicable law and employee job description. This is a big issue that comes up. What does other duties as assigned mean? And we wanted to try to offer clarity there that we know this happens. We know it comes up, hey, we need some help with this, but it should be reasonably related to the job. And if it does, if something comes up that this is something that we realize is actually really part of this job, then let's make sure we put in the job description. All right, and then we have, this is a new, if accepted, we struck class coverage in the title. Now we go to 3.5 class coverage. So 3.51 class coverage shall be defined as regular workday responsibilities of the instructional personnel. So this is now differentiating between duties and class coverage. This would mean a new instead of 3.44, 3.52. striking every effort will be made to secure, rather just saying a substitute teacher shall be secured for an instructional personnel who is absent from their regular workday responsibilities for purposes of coverage under this section only. An instructional personnel assigned to a field trip or other duty away from their assigned classroom shall be considered absent from their regular workday responsibilities. And this is coming from an issue where instructional personnel are sometimes required to cover while an absent teacher is on campus. So they're absent from their class duty, sorry, their class coverage. And so they may be doing something else, but then what's happening is that there's an argument being used to withhold pay or comp time from an employee who's providing coverage because there wasn't a substitute obtained. So that's the goal here, to try to be very clear that, you know, if the teacher is absent from their regular class and someone's covering, that this applies. So then when a substitute teacher is not available, that's already there, that language is already there, for an absent instructional personnel, change from teacher, resource teachers may be assigned to cover for the absent instructional personnel. Other non-classroom instructional personnel may be assigned to cover for the absent instructional personnel, the teacher. Or a content appropriate teacher may be assigned to absorb students into their classroom to cover for the absent instructional personnel, changing his and hers there. So that language is already there to absorb. A rotation schedule of all instructional personnel on faculty will be developed and distributed to implement this plan. Except in an emergency, no resource or non-classroom personnel shall be assigned to substitute more than once a week. None of that is new, no changes. And resource and non-classroom personnel assigned to substitute shall earn no less than 2 hours of comp time equal to the coverage performed. So what we're trying to go for there is, if it's more than 2 hours, they should get that in comp time. All right, the next section there, I just highlighted 3.51. If we accept this change to a new section, we would have to update that. So no changes to that language. This change to 3.46, which would be 3.54. In the event that it's necessary to assign an instructional personnel substitute duty during their planning period, the instructional personnel shall choose to be compensated either by comp time or at their hourly rate of pay. I mean, we changed it to shall because they should choose, they need to choose one or the other. Now, well, they maybe can. They got to choose one. So striking the language that talks about, we know this is tied to money, but right now the language is that whatever that pay is a negotiated amount. So you see where this is going. We proposed this before, but that our folks receive their hourly rate. And in accordance with 3.52 above, the priority list of instructional personnel who want to volunteer to cover classes more frequently will be utilized. Involuntary assignments shall be made on a rotating basis, including all instructional personnel, and shall also be posted and distributed to all impacted employees. And then new language, excluding emergencies, instructional staff will be notified of any coverage assignment in advance of their missed planning period. We're proposing a strike here of this language about schools electing to rotate within departments. And this came from the high school committee. It was important to the group to remove this option to rotate by department because this inequitably affects certain people more frequently in a department that may have a vacancy, for example. And they also proposed the change to allow for a list of teachers who want to cover to be developed so they can choose to cover more frequently if they want. And then any employee while working should be paid the hourly rate they're earning. This should be, you would think, it'll be easier for payroll because it's just additional hours for what they're already being paid. All right, a new 3.55. This would be hopefully a cost saving measure. Non-site based district level employees who receive the millage supplement. This would include district administration leaders, union leaders, cabinet, area superintendents, etc. will provide a minimum of 1 day of substitute teaching coverage per quarter. So this was something creative that even our own officers here would say, we'll go provide a day of substitute coverage a quarter or more. All right, comp time. right now, this is 3.5. I highlighted it because if we accept the change of dividing class coverage and duty coverage, we would have a new section. So comp time. All right, comp time is, the language in 3.51 already says that administrators shall grant comp time for duties beyond the normal workday or when planning is missed. No changes there, but we are proposing striking some language here about teachers notifying and utilization. We're not striking it because we want to get rid of it in its concept, but we're trying to address this in the rest of this proposed language here about eligibility, notice of use, and that sort of thing. So we would then propose a new title here, comp time eligibility. And that language is already here. I just highlighted 3.6 and 3.4 because if we change sections, we'd have to update that language, and just updating teachers to instructional personnel. So there's no intent to change this other than just some updates. But we do want to add a new section for notice of intent to utilize comp time. So this language is that instructional personnel shall provide advance written notice of their intent to utilize accrued comp time through the board's approved electronic time management system, except in limited circumstances identified below, which we'll get to. Such notice shall constitute a request for permission or approval. If the board's approved electronic time management system is unavailable or the accrued comp time has not been input into the system, notice may be submitted by email to the instructional personnel's direct supervisor or designee, and such email shall constitute written documentation of the notice. And now we're getting into utilization of comp time, and we've broken this up when no administrative approval is required and when administrative approval is required.
Can I stop you just for one
Yep.
second? So just to be clear, so
Mhm.
so what this is saying is that by submitting that request, it's
Mhm.
not constituting your permission or approval yet. You're just putting it in there saying that my intent is
Yeah.
to do this. Okay,
Here's the advance notice.
okay.
Because I think that's kind of already up here, right? In the
Mhm.
language we're speaking. So we're trying to kind of incorporate this, that the advance notice, but then we get into when approval and
Not approval.
not, or when it's required or not. And
Yep.
hopefully this will make sense. So when no administrative approval is required, comp time may be utilized without prior administrative approval under the following conditions. A, the utilization does not occur during scheduled instructional time or required student contact time. B, the utilization does not conflict with a faculty meeting scheduled pursuant to section 3.71. C, the utilization does not occur during the 1 hour per month used for PLCs or other data gathering planning intended to increase student achievement, section 2.19. Again, we're open to what that is. And when these conditions are met, advance notice submitted through the board's approved electronic time management systems shall be sufficient and utilization shall not be denied, delayed, or overridden. Now we get into utilization of comp time, and administrative approval is required. So administrative approval shall be required only when the proposed utilization conflicts with the contractually mandated conditions identified in 3.54, that's the A, B, and C. In such cases, the instructional personnel shall submit the request by email to the appropriate administrator or designee. The administrator shall respond by email within 1 workday, and if no response is provided, the utilization of comp time shall be approved. Again, open to counters on that. And then you have a question before I go on?
And I just want to put this out there because
Yep.
I think as sometimes you all go back and talk and so forth,
Mhm.
one of the concerns that we hear
Mhm.
is about the student day
Mhm.
and comp time utilization. So just, in
Yep.
thinking about how does that plan, particularly, I think in our elementary schools, K-8 schools, middle schools that require maybe some more supervision of students
Mhm.
at arrival, dismissal, so forth. So just student contact time versus when students are actually on campus.
Again, open to how to clarify that. Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll talk about it soon.
and I would just say, we hear that, and we will have a conversation around it. Comp time is one that we feel that those that we represent are
Mhm.
gracious enough to do a lot of work beyond. And when they get comp time, there seems to be a little bit of friction sometimes when they want to utilize it. So really want to just smooth that out. Not everywhere, but overall, it's great whenever, oh yeah, we can do that, we can give you comp time, but then they're maybe judged negatively or have some issue when they want to use it. We truly want to just get down to that, so that way it's a better process for all.
All right, and then a new section 3.56 on accounting and accumulation of comp time. The administrator or designee at each site shall be responsible for maintaining an accounting of accumulated comp time. You kind of see where we're going. We hope that this would be in a board-approved electronic system. Such accounting shall be updated regularly and made available to the instructional employee upon request. So maybe there is a log where, you know, it's all coming in and then it's updated. So to achieve this, all earned comp time shall be entered into the board's electronic time management system by the end of the quarter in which it was earned. So that gives some time of maybe I've got a log and I gotta get it in. Any comp time maintained on paper or other record shall be entered into the board's approved electronic time management system no later than June 30th, 2026. So what we're going for here is that we know there's some backlog. So what we're, and again, open to what that date may be, but what we're hoping to do is get backlog of time into the system. I know when we went to N4, there was some limitations, and what we're hearing is maybe that's changed, especially for ESPs. So again, open to working on this and how this could work. There's language already here about no change here. Accumulated comp time shall carry over from year to year at the school where it was earned. Contractually approved comp time shall transfer with the individual to any position covered under the teacher contract at any work site. And then prior to departing at the end of the school year, the principal, rather than provide, will ensure instructional personnel has access to an accurate accounting of the accumulated comp time through the board's electronic time management system. Again, we're hoping that there's a way that this is in a system that it's, because we've talked about this. We've run into issues where, who has my accounting? It's already in the contract that it has to be maintained and then provided, but we're just, you know, again, I think you see where we're going, but we're trying to discuss this where there's a streamlined way for employees to have access to that.
Yeah,
So.
and not to get too into the weeds of it, but just because I know it is a topic that comes up a lot. So with teachers or instructional personnel, being that comp time is not paid out, the challenge of them putting that into a payroll system. And then also if I'm putting in a time off request utilizing comp time, but maybe I have student contact time during that time, that's going to create another level of monitoring that because now there's that conflict. So just food for thought for right now.
Yeah.
We get it, and we're open to like just come up with a better way of going about it.
Yeah.
I would argue that it's the Wild West out there, and it's just done differently everywhere. I think those of us that have been in the system a while have seen it ebb and flow and change in this. What gets frustrating is that, hey, I've been at site A forever, and I collect a lot of comp time because I'm doing everything I can for these kids, and somehow I'm in the pool now at site B, and I go to site A and like, oh, we don't really have a good record of your comp time. No, we tell our employees to document that, but now, you know, so we really just want a better system. It doesn't have to necessarily be in Infor, but I think something that would be helpful for everybody.
Yeah, some of our staff have shared that in some cases, some instructional content is in a system somewhere. And so, you know, and I know that does depend on, is it?
There would never be an anomaly. No.
Yeah, well, and I think it's to your point, I think it may depend on, is this comp time earned beyond the day, or is it something that I earned so that covers planning time? I know when we first talked about this, that is a struggle, so, but that's what we're trying to go for.
Yeah, we get payroll, won't even touch it, and we get it. We would help them with that.
Yeah, okay.
You know,
We hear you,
hey,
yeah.
don't do comp time, just pay.
For that,
Yeah.
but that would involve them.
Yeah,
We can bring
and
them to that.
probably Mr. Lewis's fun. All right. 3.47. Oh, Roger wanted to add something about comp time?
No, well, I mean, it's happening at our site right now. We've got it in our system. Is that something we could speak to, or how would it be put in our system?
Oh.
Right now, comp time is being entered electronically in the Infor system.
Yeah.
And it seems to not be a complication. So is that something?
No, we just try to do it on a monthly basis, just to keep track of it, because you know, the ebbs and flows in that month, so we just track throughout that month and then have a bookkeeper or secretary after that month.
Yes.
Okay, and then we just give him, a few days, so he has all that time to track everything.
Yeah. And that's kind of with our 9 weeks, like maybe that gets, but that's where this came from.
Sounds great too. And
Yeah.
it's nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we'll
But
look
this
in.
came from Roger talking about, at our site, there is a
Yeah.
way that we're entering it. So that's where it came from. But again, we can
And we'll
talk
look
more about
into
this.
a process.
Yeah.
to
Thank you for
potentially-
sharing. And again, open to the timing and when it is, but,
Regina, back one.
oh, Regina.
Just one more time, I think that, if we do start to put it in for, we'll be able to see how much, everyone in the school district is working overtime. And that can give us an idea on, working together to try to commit that or make sure that everyone is happy how it's working.
So,
It could be enlightening.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're, again, do you need a committee? Committee.
The way it works, I
Well,
think.
could I just say, because
Sure.
it is in there, like on Infor, all I have to do is put in it's like you're to be absent, but you can select comp time. So I mean, that would suggest to me there's no payroll issue if we are able to do it at our site. So I know some other sites have been told that there's a payroll issue, but I'm like, but
Yeah.
we're doing it in ours, so how is that possible?
Well,
Go ahead.
I think it's also, at one of my payroll say, the anything new that we're earning now is in,
Yeah.
but anything that we had previously
Yes.
is staying.
Yes.
So I think for
Yes.
some people might be
We'll look
confused.
into it.
We will.
Yeah.
thank you.
No, yeah, we know we've been talking about, I think since I got here,
Yep.
3 years, so, anyway, all right, moving on. 3.7, faculty meetings and professional development, 3.71. We proposed this before, but this has to do with faculty meetings and in-service education programs shall be held on Tuesdays. And there's old carryover language from when this district went from a 7.5-hour day to an 8-hour day, that this language about and shall be no longer than a total of 25 minutes per week beyond the normal workday, except for school accreditation. No more than one faculty meeting per week shall occur on time beyond the normal workday. Our proposal is to strike this. And then also in 3.72, I think this is where the PLC, this is the proposal of the board to include PLCs here for Tuesdays, fine with that. Changing building to site-based committees. But then striking in the next sentence, this day may be extended by 25 minutes beyond the workday, striking that. And I want to speak to this a little bit, I know you do too, but our instructional employees, and it's in the notes here, are required to work more days in a work year at 198 for 198 day folks, and more hours by 8 hours in a work week or in a work day during their week, unlike all the like size and surrounding counties. Many counties are on 197, 196 days and less than 8 hours, 7.5. So what that means is our employees are working 1,584 total hours by contract. And then when you add in an additional 15 hours in a 36-week student school year, that makes it nearly 1,600 hours. So we're already nearly 60 hours ahead of, I think Fernando was the closest. So the issue here is that we really believe that the board must address this by either giving that time back to employees to improve their working conditions, or we should be leading the state with those like size and surrounding counties with the highest instructional salaries among those counties, because our folks are working more hours. They're working more days in a contract year, they're working more hours in a day. But I don't believe our instructional pay is greater than those who are working less. So that's the rationale here. And I don't know if you wanted to say.
Yeah, first I would start with, that all of our employees have to work more than 40 hours in their contract week, which is insulting. Then 2, I would say is I'm one of the fossils that worked in Hillsborough County when we had a 7-hour, 35-minute day. You know what we were able to do? The work. This contract language, it says the extra 25 minutes is a remnant, a fossil, if you will, from those days, to say that one day a week we would stay for 8 hours to get that meeting done. But yet it's held over into this world. And when I ask your side, the meetings and the quantity of meetings is super important. So I've also engaged with the district on, well, what are the most important meetings? Because I would talk to our people about what we think are the most effective meetings and then have that conversation here. But ultimately, I would say it was received with mostly silence, but my idea would be all of the meetings are so important that we have to have them. We would disagree. So that's why we're going to continually push back on this language because one, it shouldn't even be there. And two, we really think there should be a reduction of meetings because I'm gonna go back to my point. Getting in those classrooms and doing the work with kids is more important than documenting the work that we're doing in the classrooms with those kids. And this is another example of that. So with that, and I know that you guys are asking for another Monday for more meetings, and we would ask for clarity around that as well. Like, what is it that we don't get that you guys need all of this time in these group settings? Because we can talk a little bit eloquently, I believe, about what we think could be happening and make it even more effective for the planning that we do for the kids.
And I would just say that we are open to that as well, because I do think that there is a lot of expectation on both our teachers, our school leaders, everybody at our schools, right?
Yes.
And so making those meetings purposeful is really important to everybody,
Yeah.
a good use of their time, because I don't think anybody at a school site thinks that they don't have enough work to do.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so we would definitely open that. I would ask, I know that our student day, as well as the required time to supervise students who arrive, whether it's transportation, drop-offs and all of that, creates some challenges with faculty meetings that are not beyond the workday. But again, that may be something that we can talk about. So.
Yep. Happy to keep talking about all that.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, moving on to 3.73. 3.73, 4, 5, 6, 7 are all just changes from teacher to instructional personnel. 3.78, teachers to instructional personnel shall not be required to attend meetings away from the school center during pre and post planning, with the exception of the designated professional study day. We just struck training days because we didn't know what that, like in pre or post planning, like professional study day, which occur during pre-planning, and then adding when using their professional discretion regarding the use of the professional study day, which is referenced in 2.15. So just trying to clarify that if there's something we're missing there, we think it should just be professional study day. I think there maybe was a time when there were more than one, maybe that's a remnant from that.
Yeah, we used to have one in the fall and one in the spring, and they weren't done during pre-planning. Again, that's for the
fossil.
brontosaurus, and the T-Rex, and the David Peacocks out there, sorry.
So again, just trying to clean it up. Bring us to 2026.
A fossil, if you would.
You're an archaeologist.
Indiana Jones all day.
All right.
Sorry.
So it actually should probably been this day. These days are specifically set aside to enable instructional personnel to work on classroom duties and functions. This is about, pre and post planning. So the pre-planning days are specifically set aside to enable instructional personnel to work on classroom duties and functions. Instructional personnel shall be guaranteed a 1-hour duty-free lunch on each workday during pre-planning, including professional study day, and shall be guaranteed time equivalent to no fewer than 3 workdays, 21 hours, excluding lunch, during pre-planning to work in their rooms or other areas needed to prepare for the instructional school year. And then new language here, these days shall be scheduled in increments of half or full days, with at least 1 full day scheduled prior to any meet the teacher or open house event during pre-planning. And then keeping the language about instructional personnel shall be notified 2 days in advance of any tentatively scheduled in-school meeting. Such meetings shall be kept to a minimum. So the language about, I know there was a different proposal on this from the board referencing 2.79 to keep it at 30 minutes. So the 1 hour, this calculation of the 1 hour of lunch during pre-planning, I look back at this, it's been in the contract for nearly 20 years. And some of the notes on this is, during that week, there's no cafeteria services, professional study day. Sometimes it's a grab your lunch nearby. And the language in 2.79 guarantees a minimum of 30 minutes each workday. So we know that the board proposed capping this at 30 minutes. We think the language already supports the 1 hour duty-free lunch. And so the proposal here is to be very clear in the language. The days being scheduled to equivalent of 21 hours for work in the classroom, kind of the idea of pre-planning is 6 days, 3 days for the teacher, 3 days for all the other trainings and things that have to happen. When we talked about this with employees, you know, it makes a difference if those 21 hours are, oh, you got 2 hours here and an hour here, that it's really helpful when it's at least a half day or a full day. And the goal of trying to have that time before the open house is to kind of get at least the equivalent of a day before that, so I can have my room ready and all those things. So that's where we're coming from here, to work on that language. 3.79, just changing teachers to instructional personnel. And supplementary materials, 3.8, teachers to instructional personnel in both those two sections. And then a new 3.83, instructional personnel at ESE centers will be provided with curriculum, pacing guides, and county adopted texts and programs. That came from that committee. They would like to see that. And then into 3.9 with our special services classes, a new 3.93 elementary special schedules will allow a minimum of 3 minutes of passing time between classes. And the note from that committee was that to adhere to both the FTE requirements of instructional minutes for students in sections 271 and 275 of this agreement, guaranteeing 30 minutes of uninterrupted planning time for homeroom teachers. 3.10, student direction and evaluation. We're just proposing some new language here from the high school committee that district assessment timelines and protocols shall be provided to teachers no later than the end of the first grading quarter. Any district assessment that is redundant or testing the same skills as other accelerated learning or college preparatory state or federally mandated testing shall be optional at the teacher's professional discretion. So this came from the high school committee advocating for reduced testing and giving teachers autonomy to assess student learning. There was a note here too that in high school, students sit for the progress monitoring 2 and then have to sit for a district test assessing the same skills just 1 or 2 days later. And employees strongly believe that teachers should be allowed the autonomy to select those tests needed to do the assessment. And I think just to kind of say something here about this, I think the district has been looking at this. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, 3.11.1, privacy of discussion. So we're proposing striking, there's a simple 2 kind of sentences here, I guess, when an individual problem occurs between administrator and teachers, those discussions should be private and that teachers would not be publicly reprimanded. We're not striking that we don't do this anymore, but we want to offer language that gets a little more clear and specific. Any criticism, reprimand, or corrective action concerning individual instructional personnel by an administrator shall be addressed in a private and professional manner and shall not be communicated publicly. For purposes of this section, public communication includes, but is not limited to, written, verbal, electronic, or visual communications that identify, single out, embarrass, shame, or otherwise call attention to instructional personnel in the presence of students, parents, employees, or members of the public. So we're just trying to be a little more clear on what exactly this means, you know, just by simply saying when that problem occurs, the discussions need to happen in private and not be publicly reprimanded. Well, what does that actually mean? So that's where that comes from. 3.12, just changing teachers to instructional personnel. On the next page, I just highlighted 3.14.1. We do know that the board proposed changes we're reviewing. I just highlighted that there. We don't have a counter at this time, but you guys did make a proposal there. So on page 28, all right, 3.18, collection of money. Just being really clear again, teachers changed to instructional personnel in 18.1 and 2. And then some new language here from our technical college committee. 3.18.4, technical college instructors shall not be required to collect, manage, or be responsible for student payments, fees, or financial transactions as a primary duty of their instructional role, except where such responsibilities are explicitly included in their job description. 3.18.5, the district shall make reasonable efforts to assign financial responsibilities to appropriately train non-instructional personnel. And 3.18.6, when instructional personnel are required to handle money or materials, the board shall ensure the following: clear procedures, training, and secure systems for handling such transactions is provided to the employee. Instructional personnel shall not be held financially liable for loss, theft, or discrepancies beyond their control. And lastly, instructional personnel shall not be required to use personal funds to support program operations. I know we've been talking a little bit about this in regards to when kind of access to a P card is happening. We get conflicting reports that there are certain times of the year where they can't do this, so that's where some of this language comes from. And these programs involve fees, materials, costs, and that's where this is all coming from. So John can speak to it too if you have any questions, but that's where this is.
All right.
All right. The next page 30, you can see the changes just from teachers to instructional personnel. In our transportation section, 3.24.3, we are proposing a strike when it comes to reimbursement for in-county travel as part of their regular duty. Currently, the language says shall be paid mileage at the rate approved by the school board. Our proposal is to strike that and new language that they shall be reimbursed at the IRS standard mileage rate for business use of a personal vehicle as established by the IRS and in effect at the time of the travel occurs. The reimbursement rate shall automatically adjust whenever the IRS revises the standard mileage rate. You know that that's a money topic. That's our proposal there. All right, new language here, 3.27, enrollment changes and mid-year unit allocations. Probably know where this is. All right, a new language 327.1, as the board reviews student enrollment and staffing levels at each work site on a regular basis throughout the school year, when enrollment increases that significantly impact instructional conditions, this shall trigger a review of the work site's unit allocations. Next, when enrollment increases result in class sizes exceeding contractual limits, which we had offered language in 257 and 258, significantly increase teacher workload, exceed the physical design capacity of the classroom space, or create conditions that negatively impact student learning or safety, the board's designated staff shall conduct a staffing review using the current full-time equivalent enrollment data. If warranted, the board shall provide an additional unit allocation or other staffing solutions within a reasonable time frame. Next, the board's designee shall meet with the association upon request to review enrollment data, staffing allocations, and workload impacts related to mid-year enrollment increases in order to determine appropriate staffing adjustments. And next, staffing shortages and or enrollment increases shall not result in consistent double or triple class coverage for a single educator, double or triple class sizes for a single specials teacher, class sizes that exceed contractual limits in those sections referenced, or create unsafe learning environments, or instructional conditions where teachers are unable to provide meaningful academic instruction due to supervision demands. When such conditions occur, the board shall take immediate action to remedy the situation, which may include providing an additional co-teacher, long-term substitute, or unit allocation. Unit losses shall not occur after the 20-day count. It's there for you to review.
So can I just, unit
Yep.
losses shall not occur after the 20-day count, meaning there would be no unit losses across the district?
I think what that means is, yeah, that if there is because I don't think that happens, right? If after,
You're saying if there's a decrease in enrollment?
yes,
There will be no change?
yes, unit loss. So
So no adjustment would happen.
I mean, we talked about that is after the 20-day count. I mean, again,
I think it's
open,
based that that would be the last time you would do those unit cuts in that semester. And then you would go
So after those adjustments were
Yes.
done.
after those
It's-
adjustments
there would
made
be-
on the
yes,
20-day
I
count.
gotcha, okay.
but I think where we're going here is that, sorry, what? Oh, okay. And I think some of this is already, I think this is already happening. And I know in my time here, this happened where like, we set the, we set the unit allocations and then we're realizing later that, wow, class sizes are way too big at this school and we need to get more folks there. So that's the intent behind this
Okay.
language. All right, 3.28 inventory responsibilities. This came from our media specialist committee. Media specialists shall be responsible for inventory assigned to and utilized in the operations of the media center. I think a lot of this is already happening, so we've got folks to clarify if needed. Media specialists shall not be required to conduct, manage, or be solely responsible for school-wide inventory. Any assignment for a media specialist to facilitate school-wide inventory shall occur only by mutual written agreement between the administrator and the media specialist for the applicable school year and shall specify the scope of facilitation duties. And then when serving as a facilitator of school-wide inventory by mutual agreement, the media specialist shall coordinate with team leads, department heads, or designees to support completion of required inventory components for the respective areas. Media specialist role in areas outside of the media center shall be limited to facilitation and coordination. Final reviews, certification, reconciliation, audit documentation, and required signatures for inventory outside the media center shall remain with the site administrator or the administrator's designated signer, consistent with district inventory procedures. The note here is that this, according to our media specialists, how the district should understand the role of the media center. And we have some documentation from the district that states this is how it's done as a facilitation role. All right. We got through section 2, yay.
Good job.
All right. I know last time we did propose section 4 already, but there was a proposal that was missed, a new 4.26. And this is with teacher physical assault. So any teacher or bargaining unit employee who has suffered an assault and or battery in connection with their employment shall not be required to utilize their own accrued sick leave, personal leave, or other accrued leave for follow-up medical care directly related to the assault or battery. This shall include, but not be limited to medical appointments, follow-up visits, physical therapy, counseling, diagnostic testing, or other treatment reasonably connected to the work-related injury or assault. And such leave shall not be deducted from the employee's regular sick leave balance and shall be granted consistent with the provision in Article 12.37 applicable law. And you'll see in section 12, we've got a proposal related to this. And I will say that when we get there, this came from a discussion of, we know that there is worker comp provisions, but our understanding is that this gets spotty, especially when it's extended, like physical therapy. And so you'll kind of see where we're going with this, hopefully in the leave section. All right, we're into section 6 now, and this has to do with our faculty steering committees.
How you doing there, by the way?
I'm good.
We're hour in. You're doing well.
I'm good. I thank you all for bearing with us. And my goal is to get through it.
You need another soda pop or something?
No, it's
Yeah, all
okay,
right.
because then
There you go.
it's
All right.
it's good, but then
Good.
it has other effects. It's carbonated. All right, faculty steering committee 6.6. So this is already language that's here about the faculty at each work location electing a faculty steering committee that includes teacher representation elected from each department or grade level and specialty area. We're trying to create some clarity here and really help define these committees. So what our new language here proposal is: elections shall be conducted by secret ballot using a process determined by the faculty in consultation with the association building rep. And then we're striking principal and saying appropriate supervisor, because we talked to some of our folks that they have faculty steering committees, but they're not maybe out of sight with a principal. And then everything is staying the same there in that language, and then just saying this committee rather than the committee representative will be elected annually by CTA members at each site. 6.62, just adding a heading here about purpose, meetings, authority, minutes, and principal responsibilities. Well, and now we should probably say appropriate supervisor responsibilities rather than principal. All right. This language is already here that the purpose of the committee is to act in advisory capacity to the building administrator, and we want to add and to provide structured faculty input regarding matters affecting the work site, just to add clarity about what this committee does. Existing language says each year the committee shall elect a chair among the members, except that the building administrator shall not serve as a chair. And then all new language: the appropriate supervisor shall schedule the first faculty steering committee meeting at meeting of each school year in August. And then we want to get into some new language about at that first meeting, the faculty steering committee shall vote to establish its regular meeting schedule for the school year, including the recurring monthly meeting day and time. Once adopted, the regular monthly meeting schedule shall remain in effect for the school year unless modified by a vote of the faculty steering committee. Should the committee determine meetings should be scheduled during instructional planning time, instructional employees losing planning time shall receive compensatory time for planning time loss. The appropriate supervisor shall not schedule or require other meetings, trainings, conferences, assignments, coverage, or school obligations for steering committee members during a reserved meeting time. Nothing in this section shall prohibit employees from voluntarily meeting with colleagues for planning or other collaborative purposes during that time, provided such meetings are not directed or required by administration. And then keeping all the language about what happens on a monthly basis, but adding some new language here towards the end about minutes. Minutes from each monthly steering committee meeting shall be provided to the site's faculty and staff, as well as the association's building representative and or executive director. And then a new sentence here, minutes shall be distributed within 5 workdays and maintained as official school records. New language, the appropriate supervisor shall be responsible for ensuring the steering committee meets as required by this section by securing meeting space and protecting the reserved meeting time from conflicting obligations. A meeting shall not be canceled or deferred except in the event of emergency or school closure. And then we get into, there's a whole list here of things that this steering committee does. So a new heading here, school internal accounts and school controlled funds. There's language already here about the accounting of each school's internal accounts, but we wanted to add some clarity by adding the appropriate supervisor rather than principal shall, rather than upon request. So striking that, shall provide the steering committee, faculty and staff with a printed accounting of the school's internal accounts on a quarterly basis. And then new language, the quarterly accounting shall be provided within 10 workdays following the closure of each 9-week grading period. Such accounting shall be prepared using existing board-approved financial reports, formats, or reports already maintained at the school level and shall comply with applicable law and school board policy. Nothing in this section shall be construed to require elementary principal secretaries, secondary bookkeepers, or other school-based personnel to create new reports or maintain additional accounting records beyond those already required by the board. So we're trying to get here that like it's consistent, it's not something new or different, that everybody's getting the same information. Specific responsibilities heading here in 6.64. Members of the faculty steering committee shall maintain familiarity with the provisions of this agreement, applicable professional standards, the board policies relevant to committee and board policies relevant to committee responsibilities. Members shall conduct steering committee business with professionalism and discretion. Steering committee actions and recommendations shall be documented in the official meeting minutes in accordance with this section. And members shall exercise discretion regarding sensitive personnel matters or personal information discussed during deliberations consistent with applicable laws and public records requirements. And then keeping the rest of the existing language there about advisory function. And then we get into school budget, changing principal to appropriate supervisor. And when it comes to school budget, we are proposing adding a sentence, the steering committee's role under this subsection shall be advisory and consultative in nature. And this is language about reviewing the school's county budget and breakdown and all that. So just clarifying what the committee's role there. Then with faculty account, leaving the language there about what the committee is looking at, and then adding language that expenditures shall remain subject to applicable district financial procedures and internal account regulations. So we're saying that this faculty steering committee can't make the school do something that doesn't jive. Textbook utilization. Same language there, that the responsibility to assist the principal in implementing the county guidelines, and then new language that says the steering committee may provide recommendations regarding school level implementation consistent with district policy. Forms review, this committee already has the responsibility to review forms, and then adding language here that the committee may make recommendations regarding the discontinuation or consolidation of non-school board forms. So sometimes we're finding that sites have some really great forms, and we want to give them the ability to recommend that to the forms committee. Schedule and calendar review. New language. Before the end of the school year, the steering committee shall assist in developing a tentative calendar of events for upcoming school year. This includes developing schedules that alter the regular school day, including but not limited to planning, pep rally, club day, and testing. This is kind of tying to what we talked about earlier about the work year. And sign-in procedures, now tying this all together with what we propose in other sections. This faculty steering committee, in collaboration with the appropriate supervisor, shall select the worksite standardized daily sign-in procedure using either the board-approved electronic sign-in system or the official board-approved paper sign-in form for daily reporting procedures consistent with 2.45. And the steering committee, in collaboration with the appropriate supervisor, shall also select the method for documenting late arrivals or early departures consistent with 2.45. Reporting and documentation procedures shall not be utilized to initiate or determine payroll deductions independent of employee entry or written authorization as provided in section 2.45. And this comes from, we've dealt with some issues where Again, this goes back to different sites doing different things, and we tried to say, hey, get your steering committee to help address this. A new 6.65, non-retaliation, no employee shall be disciplined, discriminated against, or retaliated against for service on the faculty steering committee for good faith participation in committee deliberations. And then a new 6.6 on guidelines, that the board and association shall jointly develop written guidelines and model resources to support the effective operation of faculty steering committee meetings. Such guidelines may include, but are not limited to, Robert Rules of Order or similar parliamentary framework, model agenda templates, sample minute forms, forum guidance, and suggested practices for meetings, facilitation, and documentations. And the guidelines shall be advisory in nature and shall not create independent contractual rights or obligations beyond those set forth in the agreement. Pending development of any guidelines or resources, faculty steering committee meetings shall be conducted in accordance with this agreement and customary meetings practices determined by the steering committee itself. We've talked a lot about this through labor management, that we really want to try to model what we do in labor relations with HR. So that's really where we're going here.
Yes. Yes, no, I agree. I mean, we began our weekly meetings with Daniel Shotwell, and then we continue them with Kelly King, and I think that it's very effective, that form of communication. We think that this can and should be happening at every site. And we think that the avenue for that would be the steering committee. We know there's a lot here. We don't think that this is necessarily where we should all, gonna land, but I think it's the, like, let's start talking about making this a committee that builds ownership at our schools with the employees, with the things that they're doing, and gives them some say in how we're gonna actually operate within them. So there's been a lot of work done with this team to kind of bring you this kind of jumping off point, is what I would call it.
Absolutely.
All right, moving right along. A new committee. Section 6 is all committees. So 6.9, job description review committee. I know we had kind of established a kind of ad hoc committee for ESPs. So in the instructional contract, we're proposing a job description review committee. And new language here, a standing joint board and association committee shall be established to review and recommend revisions to job descriptions for bargaining unit positions. The purpose of this committee is to ensure job descriptions are accurate and consistent for purposes of this agreement, district requirements, administrators, and employees. 6.92, the board shall maintain current written job descriptions for each position included in the bargaining unit. The board approved job description shall define the essential duties of the position for purpose of recruitment, assignment, evaluation. For making recommendations regarding any specific position, the committee shall solicit input from employees currently serving in that role. Such input shall be documented and considered as part of the review process. And proposed changes to job descriptions for bargaining unit positions shall be submitted to the committee for review, so that recommendations can be provided to the board and association for any possible negotiations prior to board approval implementations. And lastly, job postings for bargaining unit positions shall reference and be based upon current district approved job descriptions. Should probably be board approved job descriptions. These postings shall be updated on a regular basis, no longer than every 7 years. I think a lot of this is happening. I know that we get copies of job descriptions, but this is trying to be intentional about creating a committee to do this. I know a lot of work has been done in my time to get these job descriptions updated and online, and I think we're pretty good. When I first got here, there were some that were still like handwritten and typewriter. So typewriter, I don't know if that's the right word, but this is not to say that this is not happening. It's just to kind of, can we bring it together?
For me, it was cave drawings.
Cave drawings, yeah, tablets, fossils. And then lastly, a technical college committee. This came from our technical college group, and a new 6.10. The parties agreed to reestablish a technical college committee to ensure that issues unique to technical college programs, including scheduling, facilities, student support, and program operations, are communicated to site and district leadership. My understanding is there actually used to be this committee, so that's why the re is there in parentheses, reestablished. The committee shall meet no fewer than quarterly or more frequently as mutually agreed upon. The board shall provide relevant data, reports, and information necessary and as requested by the technical college committee to effectively carry out its work consistent with applicable laws and policies. And the district shall provide a written response to formal recommendations submitted by the committee within 30 work days. And lastly, the committee shall include an equal number of representatives appointed by HCTA and the board makeup shall include a technical college steering committee lead from each technical college and shall include both instructional and appropriate ESPs. So again, this is just coming from our technical college programs having those unique operational needs that are not always consistently addressed. Right now, establishing that committee creates kind of a dedicated collaborative problem-solving space, ensure issues are elevated and addressed systematically. And you can read the rest of the notes there.
It's cool.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't, yeah, I guess a note came about something for 7.11. So I'll just come back to that maybe later.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, 8.2. All right. Bear with us on this. 8.2 is about administrative review. And we've got some proposals here to kind of deal with this, expand it, but create some clarity. And we're proposing changing the heading from administrative review to add workplace climate and administrative review. And so our heading under 8.21, we would add a heading here that says professional workplace climate and new language. That the board and association recognize that professional, respectful, and collaborative workplace supports employee well-being and effective instruction. Concerns regarding workplace climate, including patterns of unprofessional conduct or communication that interfere with a productive working environment, may be raised through existing contractual processes, including the grievance procedure of this agreement, informal and formal administrative review under this section, the faculty steering committee, or other board procedures. And we're going to get into what formal and informal administrative review means in our proposal. Nothing in this section shall create new disciplinary standards for bargaining unit members beyond those established by state law, board policy, and provisions of this agreement. And nothing in this section shall supersede the due process rights of employees or administrators. So now we want to propose language that kind of defines what's going on currently as an informal administrative review and tie it to what's already in the grievance language, and then add a new formal administrative review. So the informal administrative review, the language is already here that the association may request. We're adding informal administrative review with the appropriate assistant superintendent through the general manager of employee relations. When the association has a concern, and we didn't want to have which it feels because that was not kind of based in fact, that when the association has concerns affecting the welfare of the teachers and or the system, and adding language that says the purpose of this process shall be to discuss the concerns and attempt informal resolution. And then being very clear that use, rather than the use of this procedure does not negate the use of any other remedy. Not only, and then saying in this contract, but under this agreement or board policy, because there is some board policy that talks about ways to deal with issues. And then new language prior to the informal administrative review hearing, the association and general manager for employee relations shall schedule a pre-grievance conference. Section 26.61 already says this in the current language. You can look at it. It actually says that we have to have a pre-grievance before we do administrative review. And then new language, if the pre-grievance conference does not resolve the concerns, then the informal review meeting shall be scheduled. The timelines contained in the grievance procedure shall be suspended when the informal administrative review is initiated. So there's lots of ways for us to even, I mean, before we even get here, the grievance could solve it, board policy. So we're just trying to clarify that. And then new language, within 10 working days of receipt of the request for informal administrative review, the general manager of employee relations shall acknowledge receipt of the request and shall provide response to the association to schedule the meeting to attempt informal resolution. All right. New language about a formal and administrative review. There was a lot of discussion about this part of a formal administrative review. And we're going to propose this language as a concept, and we're very open to talking about this and what this would look like and how to kind of, if we're dealing with pre-grievance and we've tried to have these conversations, some of our folks shared with us an article from Pasco that happened this year. I'll give you copies of it. And what we're trying to do is avoid this, right? That this article showed up and there were just all these folks that showed up, and what we're trying to do is avoid this need to, like, it was like there was somebody called it like a release, that they couldn't get issues addressed because there was fear of retaliation or losing their jobs if they spoke out. And when employees don't know that there's these processes in place to address concerns, we don't really want it to turn up in a Tampa Bay Times article or crowds of people showing up to complain about a work site when there could be other ways to do it. So we've got the pre-grievance, we have this informal method, and then what? And so our proposal here for the formal administrative review is that in addition to the informal administrative review process described in 8.22 that we just went over, bargaining unit members at a work site may initiate a formal administrative review of a school administrator by means of a faculty vote of no confidence when site level conditions affecting the welfare of teachers warrants such a review. A faculty vote of no confidence may be initiated by a written petition signed by no fewer than 30% of the bargaining unit members assigned to the work site. The petition shall state whether it is based on one or both of the following grounds: one, a hostile work environment; two, incompetence. The petition shall identify the general nature of the concerns giving rise to that request and shall specify the applicable facts. The petition shall be submitted to the superintendent and appropriate assistant superintendent for verification of bargaining unit status and signature validity. Upon verification, the superintendent and the appropriate superintendent shall conduct a vote by secret ballot within 15 workdays in accordance with procedures jointly established by the board and the association. All bargaining unit members assigned to the work site shall be eligible to vote. And a vote of no confidence shall be deemed successful upon approval by a simple majority of the ballots cast. Results of the vote shall be transmitted within 5 workdays to the appropriate regional superintendent, the superintendent, and the association shall be provided written confirmation of any administrative review actions initiated as a result of the vote. So this is, I know, progressive and new, but we're trying to create an avenue where this can happen safely, and we're open to counter and discussion on this. But we are trying to avoid us getting to the end of the school year where it's gotten the pressure so high. How can we? So this was a creative proposal to try to deal with that. All right, section 12. We're getting close. Section 12 leaves. In section 12.11, we wanted to start right off the bat with new language that talks about the responsibility for entering leave into the district payroll system shall remain with the instructional personnel.
You missed 11.7. That was it.
Oh, well, we already proposed that last time, actually.
Yeah.
So, sorry, it's on, I printed it on the same page, but yes,
Energy transfer.
11.7 was
Yeah,
our
we got
energy
it.
transfer. But
Okay,
thank you for
perfect.
pointing that out,
Yeah.
because it was proposed last. So yeah, leave. The responsibility of entering leave into the district payroll system remains with the instructional personnel. So you gotta do your leave, you gotta put it in the system. And changing teacher to instructional personnel. And that should be pretty straightforward there in 12.1, 12.12, and 12.13. And a new 12.14. No leave shall be entered into the district payroll system without documented employee knowledge. The principal secretary or other site-based administrative staff member shall not enter leave into the district payroll system on behalf of employees unless the employee has provided written authorization, including but not limited to documented acknowledgement on the late sign-in or early departure form. That was kind of an idea that, we talked about earlier, having paper forms, an email or other written acknowledgement. So hopefully you see where we're going there, that we've had some issues where folks are saying, I didn't know that time was being entered and kept and then entered in. Okay. 12.26. This is a concept that.
Can I just have you
Yep,
one second,
yep.
because I know that there is also a part of the contract, and I don't know if it's necessarily copied here, but
Okay.
it does talk about the office keeping count of,
Mhm.
I'll just call it partial absences up until it gets to the 4 hours, and then it's on the responsibility of the office to be submitting that, so
Yeah, and I think,
that could be something to a
Yeah.
process.
open to a counter.
if they don't put, even when it comes down to like sick time or designated to a certain thing, then, there are people going behind them and putting something else in, so it's not even, so without the employee's approval, they are putting something else in, and sometimes it's mixing payroll up, so I'm taking my sick time, and it really was personal pay, or vice versa, so
Yeah.
just making sure that the employee puts it in, or say, maybe they're too sick to put it in, okay, so maybe there's an email, some kind of communication where at that point, the office, will put it in.
Yeah, right. Thank you for that.
Can I just
Sure.
real quick, just because on Infor again, you can put in as little as like 1 or 5 minutes or something like that. So this wouldn't prevent them from putting in if I have to take an hour off. 'Cause I've got I guess it's still kept by the
Yes.
administrator.
Thank you to those of you to help that. I don't know what that was like. All right, 12.26. This is an idea that we're open to determine what this looks like. We've talked about this before, parental leave, and so we know that, to provide parental leave, as we just said, oh, people get 10 days, that is budget. So our proposal here is a concept similar to the sick leave bank, that there would be a parental leave bank. So bear with us, and we're open to talk about this, and maybe there's something we can do here. So what we're looking at is a parental leave bank shall be established for the purpose of providing limited paid leave to eligible employees following the birth, fostering, or adoption of a child. Participation in the parental leave bank shall be voluntary. Employees wishing to participate shall contribute 1 sick leave day upon enrollment. Membership shall remain active unless the employee exhausts benefits under this provision or leaves employment. And then we get into all of the A through I, which is very similar to sick bank, but again, open to have what this may look like and if we can make it happen. A limited number of sick leave bank days may be set aside initially to establish or annually to provide paid parental leave for eligible employees. And the note here is we're open to determine this. We know we talked a lot about, the sick leave bank, folks signed up for that for a reason. So, maybe we need to check with people if they'd be open to that, or maybe it's just a no, that's sick leave bank, but we know there's a lot of time there. Would that be something we could do? Again, open to, not saying that it has to be that, just an idea. B, the total number of days available under this provision shall be capped annually and made available on a first come, first served basis during the student calendar year. And again, this is just an idea that if we don't establish it and maybe we have low enrollment the first year, that maybe we need to say, well, because right below it, we're saying they may receive up to 10 days, but maybe we don't have a lot. So it's capped at 2 days. And then if it's really not a lot, we need to say it's really first come, first serve. And then once we're done, we're done. It could even be, hey, it's really only available during the 180 student days. And there's just trying to find a way to maybe provide this. And then there's C, eligible employees may receive up to 10 days of paid leave from this allocation within 30 days of the birth or adoption of a child. Again, this could be less based on enrollment or how we set it up. D, allocation and available days shall be on a first come, first served basis based on the date of the complete application. There twice, sorry. Use of days under this provision shall not require exhaustion of accrued sick leave and shall not be subject to eligibility criteria outlined in 12.23 for catastrophic illness. Participation in this program shall not reduce or otherwise impact employees' eligibility for sick leave bank benefits related to a catastrophic illness or injury. So again, trying to make sure those are separate. And G, the parental leave bank committee shall administer this provision and may establish procedures for application, approval, distribution of available days. H, if the available allocation days is exhausted, no additional paid parental leave shall be granted under this provision. And this provision shall be subject to annual review by the sick leave bank committee based on usage, available days, and program sustainability. So just an idea, is there something we can do there? Voluntary, very similar to our sick leave. I don't know if it can, but just an idea.
I would just want to say
Yes.
that let's look at this through the lens of we are progressive and innovative in Hillsborough County. I know that there are many moms and dads in this room that were not afforded some of the things that we're trying to propose here. That should never be a deterrent for doing what's right for families when we can. And I think this is a creative jumping off point as well. And let's think about what we could maybe do around this. We talked about there are fewer students in our district because fewer people are having kids, and maybe this will help that a little bit. I don't know,
Check pre-K in
I
4
should have
years.
put that in the note.
not in the notes.
Or right there.
Rob's an improv, don't forget.
Increase the birth rate.
To increase the enrollment.
There you go.
It is outside the box.
It is.
Yes.
All right, 12.32, this is about all claims for sick leave must be submitted to the principal, that's already there. And new language through the board's electronic time management system. We didn't say Infor because maybe that could change, the moment we put a name in there, it is outdated. And then new language, if the electronic system is unavailable, the claim may be submitted by email to the teacher's direct supervisor or designee, and such email shall constitute written documentation of the claim. And then striking who, but because this is like new language, the principal or designee shall make the report to the payroll section, and then the rest of the language stays the same. I highlighted some language down here in the second to last sentence where it talks about the superintendent is authorized to require certification of illness from a licensed physician or from the county health officer if deemed necessary. We were wondering who the county health officer is and when and how does this happen?
So it's oftentimes just the principal, the designee of the superintendent asking for medical documentation.
That's who the county health officer is?
No, I'm sorry. Oh, who the county health officer is, that part I don't know.
Okay, but when
I thought you
deemed
meant how is the
necessary-
process happening.
Yes, so it's
Yeah.
two parts, county health,
Yeah.
and then say it again, if deemed necessary, when and how does
Yeah,
it happen?
If, let's just say sick time absences were being requested for a long duration of time, there may be a request for medical documentation.
Okay. Yeah, that would be like FMLA, right? Because in an FMLA situation, you have to have
Could
that.
turn into that, yeah.
Is there any other, where that is happening really? Because we got.
That's
questioned,
what I
was
know
like,
it
I
to
think it's
be.
only happening in FMLA, okay. So if we find out who the county health officer is, or what does that mean in regard to this, do we need it there? I don't know, and we don't know if that meant like for this county, or if it's like Hillsborough County, I don't know, so just a question there. All right, and then new language here in 12.37. I think this related to language in our section 4 that we proposed today. But this 12.37 is teachers employed at an ESE center, ESE self-contained classes shall be granted 3 additional paid sick leave days annually, designed exclusively for medical needs arising from work-related injuries or assaults incurred in the course of their duties. These days shall be in addition to all other accrued leave and shall not be deducted from the employee's regular sick leave balance and will not accrue from year to year. And the note here is just about that issue with workers' comp being spotty on coverage for therapy or other things. Yeah, you know that we've done a lot of work, I think, in the last contract to try to create avenues to deal with assault, but our folks are still getting hurt. Okay. Page 61. I think the reason this was included, I don't know, there may have, page 61, there may have been a change here that maybe didn't print in color. The next few pages are just really minor.
Hold that page.
Yeah, I don't know why I pulled that. I'll look, let me put a note here to check if there was something on here that didn't get put in color. The next page though, there were a few little things here. You see in 12.14.2, it's just adding F. We think that F is also supposed to be there. And also on page 64 and 12.15.3 and 12.16.3, that E and F under 11.46. So you can double check those later.
It's a vacancies by certification area.
Yeah.
Math, English elementary will be available in the division.
Yeah, I think E and F are supposed to both be referenced there, but
Okay.
double check that word. Okay.
Didn't you do with the conference day?
Oh,
Conference day.
I didn't print in color. We already got it. Okay. On page 61 in 12.10.1, just right there towards the bottom, on parent conference day/night. In the section of the contract that references day and night, is it during the day or is it at night? It's supposed to be both. We think it's supposed to be both there.
we have an important update on the health officer if you wanted
Oh,
to know.
good.
So, the head of the health department in Hillsborough County is the health officer, and that is currently Mark Roby.
Roby?
Yes,
R-O,
ROBY.
okay.
I have not
So I
known him
guess-
to submit us
I,
a health note for an employee.
so yeah, I guess like when would that person deem?
Yeah, exactly.
There's a measles or something, and that's when they jump in and give direction
Okay,
to
got it.
any organization.
Got it.
Public health.
Thank you.
Issue,
Yeah.
Sounds like a Costanza job.
Gotcha. Thank you. Okay, that helps.
To retire.
All right, now in our current language, 12.23, we already have some language here about maternity, paternity adoption, and FML, this is family care leave. So what we've done here is try to update this language to actually align with what FMLA is. So teachers all changed to instructional personnel in 12.23, 1 and 2. And then for 12.23, 3, eligible, this is new language, eligible instructional personnel may receive up to 10 days of paid parental leave through the parental leave allocation fund established in 12.26. So that's what we just talked about, that parental leave fund. And then A, such leave shall be used within 30 days of the birth or adoption of a child and only during the student calendar year. This leave shall not be banked or sold or donated. Parental leave shall run concurrently with any leave taken under Family Medical Leave Act, FMLA, where applicable. So this is just language to reference what we just talked about with that parental leave thing. 12.23.4, changing teachers to instructional personnel. So this is new, sort of. There's existing language about teachers may use their paid or unpaid sick leave, but this is to say, instructional personnel may use their accrued paid or unpaid leave prior to the child's birth or adoption. And then new language, eligible instructional personnel shall be entitled to up to 12 weeks of leave under FMLA for the birth, adoption, or placement of a child or for family care in accordance with federal law. Such leave may be used for recovery and or bonding following the birth or adoption of a child. Paid leave, including sick leave and parental leave under section 12.23.2 shall run concurrently with FMLA leave where applicable. At the conclusion of the FMLA leave, the instructional personnel shall return to work or request additional leave. So the existing language there was talking about a maximum of 12 weeks unpaid, which I'm pretty sure that is FMLA, yeah. But we just wanted to be very clear that this is talking about FMLA.
Can I just go back and ask a question on 12.2.6, because we have birth, or you have birth, fostering, or adoption of a child.
Uh-huh.
But I don't see fostering in, because that's not listed in the 12.2.3.
Oh,
so
okay, so that was
just might need some
yes,
clarification.
I'll put that there. But yeah, it would be fostering too.
Thank you.
Because I think FMLA can be for the birth, adoption, or placement of a child. So I think that's why we were saying in the parental bank that that's what that is, fostering placement.
Okay.
But again,
Everything that's FMLA.
and again, this language in this language here of A, B, and C would all be dependent if we do a parental leave bank anyway. The other language here is to just kind of clarify what FMLA is under the law, just to be really clear that that's what that is.
We would mirror the language to match that.
Yeah. So that's our proposal there. And then in the current 12.23.4, this would be updated 5 if we add all that language. Leave for a maternity, paternity, adoption, or family care beyond the period described above, that FMLA 12, may be granted, striking for any period more than 30 days, but just saying may be granted in accordance with 12.19.1, which is what that is. That's allowing for more leave. And then family care leaves, no changes there, shall be limited to continuous leaves. All right, at the bottom, 12.25, funeral leave. This language, I'm not gonna read it because it is copied directly from the ESP contract 17.3, updated to apply to instructional employees So we're proposing here that our instructional employees are granted the 3 days of paid leave to facilitate attendance at funerals, and then local vicinity funerals may receive 1 day of funeral leave. And again, I'm not gonna read it because it's directly from our other employee unit contract. And there's a note here, we really believe this is important, and I think we've been doing a lot of work to address this. We still have issues where this old rule or old thought of if you go over 10 days missed in a year, you're gonna be deducted on your evaluation, and folks get these warning letters. This isn't happening everywhere because we've done a lot of work, but it's still happening. And the comments that come to us is that if an administrator is still thinking in that realm of, oh, if you're gone more than 10, because that's what you're allotted in a day, that you should be penalized. But if someone has to leave for bereavement and they've got that time, that's where it's coming from. And then it's like a catch-22. There's no bereavement available, so I gotta use my leave time and then being productive. So anyway, I know we proposed this in the past, but here it is again. All right. We're almost to the end. And Appendix F, we talked about this with this accountability language in Article 3. I'm not gonna read this either, but I just wanted to kind of point out, there are some adjustments where we just updated, I highlighted one of them here in Section 3 where it says by affected instructional bargaining unit members. So there's places here where we're talking about instructional employees voting, but to align with the changes we made in start of Article Section 3 is being really clear that this is about affected employees on that vote. So these pages, page 141, 142, 143, are all from the guidelines. And page 144 is a flow chart that is shared with us. And again, we're open to look at these and update them so that they're kind of standardized, but I'll let you guys read that on your own time, because I know you're so excited to go home and read that tonight. So,
You gave us lots of.
During the lightning game.
yeah. So that's it for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you did a great job, right?
Yeah.
You did.
Good job
Yeah, you did.
sharing these things. We know there's a lot to digest really on
Yeah.
both sides.
On top of what we proposed.
Right.
Yes, and we've started reviewing the previous proposals, and so
Right.
some of those things will be,
Yeah.
started to formulate some numbers and so forth, so that will give us a better idea of how it all fits together.
Yeah.
Because so many of the sections and articles overlap from one to the other, so having all of it now. will be very
Yeah. And of course, I know that there are things sprinkled throughout here that do impact money, you know, they're could be considered money items. And we know that we still have Article 1820 in Appendix C to actually look at salaries and those sorts of things. So, and we'll have to, you know, if things are added, we can then continue to work on making sure numbering is correct, the appendix, not the appendix, the index and table of contents are all correct. So let's talk about what we want to do next. We know there's a lot here. And as you're going through it, my thought is, just off the top of my head, is do we want to schedule a time where it's, hey, we need to come back and just have more discussion, ask questions? Maybe it's not counters yet unless you're ready, because I'm thinking there's a lot here. We can also just say, I don't, you know, I say we talk about labor management, but then I fear is not in the sunshine. But I also know there's a lot here, and it's not, I would not expect you guys to be ready in 5 days, like
No.
next week. So, and we also know that special session and all those things. So do we want to look at a date and like maybe set something tentatively, and then if it's like, hey, we need more time, or that date is just literally to come back and maybe have more discussion about how proposals can go together that you proposed, just your thoughts. Yeah.
Right.
May's a little bit crazy. Yeah.
No. You guys have a board meeting, so that pushes it into this week. The week of the 25th. Or the 18th. Pretty soon. Close. Yeah. We're thinking by the time that we go through this, coordinate schedules and so forth, and then even after that, be able to actually make any sort of updates or counters to
Yeah.
it. That could put us back to like the week of May 25th.
Yeah, I totally understand.
Okay.
I mean, it's, I would accept that and understand that because we propose nearly 100 pages.
Yep.
Of language, and each of those pages has lots and lots of changes, so, yeah, we can look at that.
Could I propose this to you is let us first try to coordinate when
Sure.
we can even all get together again.
Sure.
And then, but have that as a target week potentially.
Yeah.
And then over the next week or two, be able to
Mhm.
confirm. that
Yeah.
that's
So that Monday is out because it's
Yeah,
Memorial
Monday's
Day.
out.
Yeah.
So are there any other like dates
other-
that week? I'm out.
Another day I
I'm doing
see,
graduation
Yeah,
all day on
figured that
Wednesday,
too.
the
and May
27th.
27th looks like we have an insurance committee meeting.
We can go in the afternoon, I'm sure after that, if that's.
If you'd like to do
but-
that.
Might be easier for us to coordinate.
I won't be able to be
Yeah,
there
together.
because I'm at graduation.
Yeah, so if you guys just want to, figure all that out and then with the calendar, come back at us, that's fine. But we'll look at that.
I'll keep that in
right
mind, that
around
maybe
there.
that's not.
Yeah, I mean, all those days that week, right now, I don't see anything on our calendar, like this, the build, like we've got space available, so yeah, I mean. Yeah. So we'll say tentatively the last week of May, and then. Again, we'll figure it out, and then go from there.
Okay.
And everything else on here, just, we'll hold our breath with the legislature and. go from there. Yes.
You're hopeful.
Just keep.
You're hopeful.
All right.
Well, thank you. You
thank
did a
you.
wonderful job presenting.
Thank you,
that.
everyone.
Yes.